All right, welcome everyone. Sunday Speedrunner Spotlight with internet issues that are worse than ever before. We love to see it. Not really, but anyway, Dragon Blitz, how's it going? Hopefully better
I'm
than my
doing all
internet.
right. Yeah. I'm doing all right. Sorry to hear about the internet issues. That is a huge bummer, but we make do. We make do with what we got.
I've been making do for years, although it really does not want to get better for me. Oh well. On a lighter note, speedrunning. That's fun. Let's talk about that instead. So,
Yeah.
what got you into this hobby?
Oh man. My speedrunning career started about it's coming up on 10 years.
Ooh.
Around 2013. Well, that's when I started speedrunning. I got interested in the hobby probably around this time, maybe about 10 years ago. I got recommended some classic games done quick marathon footage on YouTube. So
Mm.
I watched like all of that, like super enthralled with the idea of the fact that there could be like glitches or like secrets or strats that are like completely opaque to someone who's just playing the game casually that people have spent time like discovering and then implementing into full like attempts of speedruns was really interesting to me. Like I was immediately enthralled with the idea of like, wow, this game has like all these glitches I didn't know about. That's really cool. I ended up watching a bunch of speedruns for old games that I was like nostalgic for, and it eventually led me to Castlevania Symphony of the Night, a game that I played a ton as a kid. I used to watch Rom Scout speedruns all the time, his GDQ runs, his live stream, all that fun stuff. And eventually, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna give this a try. What's the worst that'll happen? And I just stuck with it for 10 years.
Fair enough. That, I mean, decades pretty long in speedrun years, so.
And it's weird because I always felt like I was the new guy for the longest time. Because I feel like comparatively to when I started, the hobby at that point was already like kind of occupied by people who were in their like mid to late 20s, and I got started when I was like 17.
Mhm.
So I always felt like I was the young one in the group for a very long time.
Yeah, I started when I was 18,
Mm.
in 2017. Which is funny now because, like, yeah, I guess I felt kind of young then, but like everyone now is like 15 or 16 that are good, and it's like, well, how the
Yeah,
times have changed.
there is something to be said with you give a 15-year-old with that amount of free time
Hmm.
just access to all of the practice tools, all of the information, all the stuff that like took years for people to develop, get that in their hands, and they, over the course of a weekend, over the course of a summer, whatever, can grind out like dozens and dozens of hours of attempts.
Hmm.
Like it is crazy.
It's ridiculous. Like, I heard some people like practice for like 15 hours a day, just going ham, and it's like, well, you can't
I don't
compete
have
with that.
I don't have that kind of stamina
No.
anymore. I'm like 3 to 4 hours, and I'm like, all right, I'm done for today.
Hmm. Yeah, that's the cutoff point.
Yeah.
I don't know how people do it.
Yeah,
It's just,
it is a crazy. I mean, the speedrunning landscape has changed so much over
mhm.
even just like the last 5 years, let alone the last 10. It is a weird world we're living in now.
Yeah, it's funny to think about, like, back when I started, it was so much different, and then people were saying like, then, wow, it's so different now. It's like
Yeah,
every year, it's like, oh, everything's different now. Deal with it.
even even like watching old live streams, like anytime you watch like a summoning salt video and he's pulling up like live stream footage from like 2013, 2012, it's like, man,
Hmm.
times really have changed. We're looking at like not even de-interlaced footage of like composite video going through like a dazzle, if that. Um, like if you know what a dazzle is, you're old enough to retire in the speedrunning world.
I was a dazzler for like 3 years.
Yeah, same,
So,
same. I
although
mean,
when I dazzled, it was 2018 to like 2021. So I had it
they
for,
were they were still good. I mean, like
yeah, it
I
worked.
think I think a lot of people, if you knew how to do the right settings, which I mean most people didn't back in the day,
Hmm.
but yeah, like video capture equipment has gotten a lot better. Like stream quality has gotten a lot better. General internet connections have gotten like more
For some
wide
people.
scale for some people. Unfortunately, not everyone, but
Yeah.
but yeah, like the fact that most people when they stream on Twitch, they're streaming 1080p, 60 FPS, and like a 6K bitrate. If
Mhm.
that's like unheard of. Like for
Yeah.
back in the day, you'd be lucky to be streaming at like 480p.
Yeah, I'm a 1080p 6 or 5K. What am I doing right now? I don't even know. No, it's 6K.
Yeah, yeah.
No wonder my
That's the
internet sucks.
that's the Twitch bitrate limit, anyways. So
Yeah. Yeah, I've maxed it out. For the longest time, it takes so long to like figure out OBS settings and getting everything to
oh
look good because I think for like the first year I was streaming at 30 FPS and I didn't even notice.
yeah, I that's one of those weird things that like as a speedrunner, you slowly just collect like streaming knowledge just
Hmm.
from doing it for so long, and it's all in the goal of making your gameplay feed look as clean as possible.
Yep.
Like, I mean, I would have never cared about like upscalers and capture cards. What are the best video settings? Do I need my color range to be full range, partial range? Like, what do these like settings even mean? Like, what's hardware encoding on OBS, and like going through all these rabbit holes of like figuring out these settings just so that my stream could look a little bit better. So the local recording or the stream or whatever when I upload it, so that way it goes on the leaderboard, looks clean, because
Hmm.
the last thing you want is a like top time or like a PB that like has dropped frames or has like the actual gameplay feed look messy, so you can't actually go back and review what it is that you did.
Yeah, I definitely feel the same way and have messed with a lot of stuff. Once you're in the rabbit hole, it just doesn't stop. And it's funny, you just said words I've never thought of. So
Yeah.
apparently I'm not fully in yet, but I
Oh yeah,
remember.
there's a lot. Like if you have like an NVIDIA capture card, you can change the settings that OBS uses. Like instead of using your CPU to encode the video, you can use your GPU, and it makes the quality look better without increasing the internet bitrate and stuff like that. Like there's a lot
Hmm.
of stuff you can do to increase video quality with the limitations of like, because 6K bitrate isn't like a very large bitrate. That's like not a lot of information
Hmm.
to get sent in general. I think like YouTube streaming limit is like insane. It's like 30K bitrate or something like that.
Jesus
But
Christ.
they also support like 4K streaming,
Hmm.
where I don't believe Twitch does. They might technically support it, but it's the bitrate isn't there to actually support it.
I've never seen
Um,
it.
yeah, I don't think it's an option on Twitch, but either way.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's just one of those like weird like niche things where if you talk to like anybody who's been speedrunning long enough, like they have like a whole closet full of gadgets and splitters and
Hmm.
tech info that they've just picked up over the years, even though like you wouldn't necessarily assume that speedrunning has a lot to do with like internet video stuff, but there is a crossover.
Oh yeah. Um, I remember to get my quality so much better. Like, all right, got to get a CRT with component. Got to get the
Hmm.
RGB mod component cable. Get a capture card that isn't a Dazzle. So now I've been using a StarTech for a few
Dude,
years now.
same.
Yeah.
Yeah, the StarTechs are really, really nice. I don't think the company's in business anymore,
Mm.
or at least I think they might have like stopped making specific models, because the one I use is like one I've used for like 6 years now or something like that, and it's very, very nice.
Yeah. I think I had to install some unofficial drivers just to get it to work because it's like not supported anymore.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds about right.
But it's so nice because it's cheap for what it is, and it has HDMI component, S video composite, like
Yeah,
everything. It's like, oh, cool! It's my all-in-one box. I never have to worry about it. Although I
yeah.
still use Amarek because, yeah, just because direct capture using the StarTech drops frames, the capture
Ah, that
card
makes
drops
sense.
frames
Yeah, yeah.
through direct. Unless you do it through Amarek for some reason, and the quality looks nicer for some reason. And then,
Amarek has some built-in like anti-aliasing
okay.
thing that like helps with any sort of like it's kind of like VSync,
Hmm.
if you want to think of it that way. It's like built-in VSync for the capture. I know there are people that still use Amarek. For me, all of that is done through the upscaler that I use.
Yeah, I
So
don't have an upscaler, so
yeah,
I feel like I just don't need one. The component looks good enough for me. And
yeah,
I play
If you
games
have a
that are so
CRT,
old, it's only like 2 pixels anyway, so it doesn't really
yeah,
matter.
exactly. And if you have a CRT that you're comfortable using, like the main
Mhm.
reason I switched to is so I can start playing on monitor for like older
Oh yeah,
games.
yeah, yeah. I still have a
Because
CRT.
I still have my CRT in the other room. It's just, I I don't want to have it up on my desk next to all of my other monitors and stuff like that. It just
Yeah,
takes up too much space.
yeah. Especially when you have a 27-inch one. It's
Hmm.
it's quite massive over here, but it fits. I don't have a
I
ton of
had
monitors though, so it's fine.
Yeah, I got rid of my like super big CRT that had component. I just couldn't justify keeping it around. It weighed like 50 pounds or something like that. It was like 30 inches. It was ridiculous. It was a behemoth of a CRT that like couldn't even fit on my desk. But I found it at Goodwill for like $6, and I was like, "There's no way. I can't let this go."
Yeah, I found
So
mine on Craigslist for 20, so
yeah.
it worked out. Really good condition, and it's been a lifesaver. So
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's just one of those things where like even just like the fact that speedrunners still hold on to these like CRTs and stuff like that. I think a lot of people are moving away from it either just because their game doesn't necessarily require it, HDI modding of consoles or just upscalers in general have
mhm,
become more ubiquitous. But like 5 years ago, like pretty much everybody was speedrunning on CRTs.
mhm. Well, the thing is the whole RetroTink craze. Like you can play on a monitor with like no input lag. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean there still is input delay for sure, but it's like
It's like 1 frame
so
maybe.
it's
It
less than
depends
a
on the
frame.
monitor, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But the actual I think it's 15 milliseconds was
Mm.
the official for the 5X is it's a 15 millisecond delay, which is like nothing.
Yeah.
It might even be less actually. I might be misremembering. So if I'm wrong, I apologize. But it's ridiculously low. And most like monitors that are designed for gaming or just tangentially are like computer monitors nowadays have very low latency.
Mm. Yeah, low latency is incredibly important for gaming of any kind, old or new, so it works out.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, dude, that reminds me. My very first time like getting into speedrunning before I had a CRT. Oh my god! And I was like playing off of like an old TV, like flat screen from like 2010 with
Mm.
like half a second of delay. Oh man, it was rough.
Yeah, I had it similar. I started on emulator on a laptop that did not run things very well. Um,
Oh yeah.
it was probably like 10 or 12 frames. I actually got really good with that input lag somehow. And then I went to my first GDQ in 2018, SGDQ, and
Mm.
played on consoles for like the first time. I was like, I'm suddenly a god. What happened?
Yeah, when you feel the input delay go away for the first time, it is crazy.
Hmm.
It's similar to it's not as much of the same feeling, but it's a similar feeling for anybody that has a like high refresh rate monitor. When you switch to the high refresh rate for the first time, and you're like, oh my god, I can never go back.
Hmm.
It, it,
Yeah,
it very similar with latency.
I've had like 60 FPS monitors for the longest time, and then when I got my newest laptop, it has 300 hertz.
Oh my god, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
so I was like, oh, there's so
Bro,
much here,
I
so
feel
many
like at that point
frames.
you're just in the freaking matrix because like even 144 hertz is like what my monitor can do, and I'm like
Hmm.
this feels like I can't imagine needing more than this. I imagine there's diminishing returns after a certain point, but 300 hertz sounds crazy.
I think I usually cap at like 120 anyway, and then my
Yeah,
second monitor that I use for everything else is 60 capped, and
yeah.
that's fine. But yeah, it was crazy turning on for the first time, and I was like moving the mouse, and I was like, what? What is happening?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's not teleporting anymore. It's like a smooth trail.
Hmm. It's a
Yeah,
perfectly smooth trail. Like you can circle it. Like I can circle it on this monitor and then the other monitor. It's such a difference. It's ridiculous. And you wouldn't notice it usually
yeah. I
until
mean
it happens.
that is another funny thing about speedrunning is the collection of like newer tech all for the not always for the sake of like better speedruns, but oftentimes it is like you know I want to upgrade my setup because it will make my speedruns better or it'll make my
Mhm.
stream setup better or something like that.
Yeah, conveniency, quality, like so much work goes into that.
Hmm.
And people don't usually think about it, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah, dude, I can't remember. Yeah, my first stream setup was on like my school laptop
Hmm.
from high school. streaming on XSplit. For those that remember XSplit,
That's even before
cursed.
me.
Yeah, XSplit is some cursed technology. Not a fan. OBS was around at the time, but I couldn't run it on that laptop. OBS, of all things, was too intensive for my laptop. So XSplit was all I could use. The free version of XSplit, I think, capped your stream at 24 or 25 frames per second.
Oh God.
And like 480p max. Those VODs still exist. They're like not VODs completely, but like I still have Twitch highlights of like some of my first speedruns that are from that setup that still exist on Twitch's servers, which is crazy. I've watched them back every once in a while, and I'm just like, man, dude, my microphone was like this terrible like little like lap microphone thing. Oh God, it was awful.
I had a couple of years where I didn't even use a mic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just one of those things where you don't always have to have like the crazy tech setup when you get started. Obviously, most people just start with what they have, but yeah, I mean, starting without mic, that's a pretty common, if I remember correctly. There was plenty of people that they just did runs and then they would like type in their chat to say hi to people or whatever in
That was
between,
me.
like with downtime. Yeah.
Yeah, I started super easy. Just captured the game. That was it.
Yeah.
But times
Did you always
change.
use live split for your speedrun splits?
Yeah. I always
Okay.
had live split.
Yeah, because before that there was a program called W Split that
I've
was
seen it.
yeah, it's very nostalgic when you see the default W Split layout. Like that's like the speedrunning scenes that I remember.
Nice.
Just like gameplay, black background, W Split all the way down.
Sometimes not
And
even all the way down.
yeah, sometimes it was just part of the, just like I only need to see 6 splits, so whatever. Or the run was short enough that you didn't need that many splits. Yeah.
I've definitely seen footage from back then, so
Yeah.
it's a vibe.
Yeah. That's just what watching live streams was back then. It was every once in a while somebody would have a webcam that was at like it was like a 15 FPS webcam, like a default webcam that was built into like their laptop or something like that. Like stream qualities have gotten insane comparatively since then.
Oh yeah. And it's crazy like how many viewers people would drive in even with those quality layouts.
Oh yeah. Yeah, back then it was really just streaming was such a niche thing and the saturation wasn't like there yet for there to be like more streamers than viewers, where I feel like nowadays I would actually like to know what the Twitch ratio is to number of people streaming on the platform versus like number of like active viewers at any given time. But back then there was plenty of people that wanted to watch live streams, but like not very many people had the technology to actually stream it, let alone like, speedrunning, which was another niche that was for whatever reason becoming more and more popular, probably due to the GDQ getting like a lot more buzz through like YouTube and stuff like that.
Yeah, it definitely popped off really quickly.
But yeah, like the days of like just being a dude who like does PB attempts and that's the only thing you stream and getting like casually like 2,000 viewers is pretty much done. Like I don't think those days really. Some people can still get away with it. I think people who started a long time ago and just have continued to do that, I think they've kind of cultivated an audience. But like if you wanted to start today and become the next, 1K Andy that only does, PB attempts with no cam and just gameplay, like I don't think that exists anymore. I don't think there's a market for that anymore.
Yeah, I like started right when that stopped being a thing because I've never pulled in that many viewers.
Yeah, even if you have like multiple world records or you're doing world record attempts, like putting world record attempts in your title isn't a draw for people anymore.
Yeah, and like the people that are at the top still they won't average like they'll maybe average 100 that I know of that just do that, the PB thing. Like that just
it depends
it's
on
just
the
not
game,
a thing
but
anymore.
yeah, it really does depend on the game. There are certain games that will just have like a more casual audience or a casual appeal without the need for outside marketing. But some of the more saturated games, like well, I don't know. I'm conflicted because there are certain games where they are so ubiquitous and notarized that even if you are somebody who just does PB attempts, but if you have world record, it is big enough in the world of speedrunning that like people will pay attention and notice. Like Mario 64 is like a classic example in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like if you started your stream tomorrow and you did like 16 star attempts and you're getting like you know, within 5 to 10 seconds of world record, people will start watching. Like
Mhm.
that's just because people have a constant want or they constantly are like, well, what's going on in 16 star, for example, or what's going on in Mario? Like people like having their finger on the pulse of that speedrun in particular, but that's not like a very common thing. Like
Oh, it's very uncommon.
I
I
can't think
say.
of another speedrun where that's a thing.
Mhm.
But there are also like other like large scale speedruns like Mario 1 for example, I think is a good example where like just being world record holder doesn't mean anything
It
really.
doesn't. No.
Yeah. And
Uh,
that's how it is for most games. But you would think, you know, it's freaking Mario 1 or,
mhm.
you know, it genuinely is no longer the case where people will watch speedruns for the sake of speedrunning. There has to be something else
Yep.
as a pull or an appeal, like whether it's the person's personality in combination with the game that they're playing. They could be just doing like speed runs, but really they're like challenge runs or something else that is like more like palatable to a casual audience, stuff like that.
Mhm. Yeah. I've definitely experienced that firsthand. It's not popular anymore to be good, and
No.
I've seen in the community like it's very obvious. It's just crazy
Yeah.
that difference over time.
It really did start to become a thing around like even like when I started, it was like I got some viewers. Like I was never once I started getting like world records in Symphony of the Night, I never had to worry about streaming to like like I always had at least double digit viewers at that point.
Hmm.
Which for some people like that is the starting point. Is like once you get to like 10 viewers, it's like okay, I have like a group of regulars that at least like come into chat and hang out every once in a while.
Yep.
But like starting from like 0 to 10 is like genuinely very very rough.
Hmm.
Um but then even then if I had started like a few years later, I don't think I would have even gotten to like 10 or 20 viewers. And also I had the insane privilege of the fact that for whatever reason GDQ just is like, yeah, you know what, let's do Symphony of the Night again, I guess, whatever. Like it's like the most represented game outside of Super Metroid in the entirety
Hmm.
of the marathon's history. And for a long time, like I was either second best or best in the world at the game. So it was very often that if Symphony of the Night was getting represented, it was like me or I was racing somebody else. Usually just Rom Scout.
Hmm.
Um, but
Wow.
yeah, I mean, so even with like, I think I've had how many GDQ runs at this point? AGDQ 15, SGDQ 15. Um, I think I came back for SGDQ 17 and then AGDQ 18, AGDQ 2020, something like that. I've had like a handful of GDQ runs, and even then, those runs never were um, like they got me some amount of people that would watch regularly from that, but very very rarely did it actually end up like you know blowing my channel up or anything like that.
Yeah, that's crazy how many times you've gotten it. I didn't realize Symphony of the Night was that represented.
Yeah, it's one of those like it's a sleeper game in the speedrunning scene as a whole where I think it has like a long legacy and a lot of respect from like a general gaming audience, but there's like not a lot of like diehard fans that follow like the actual like speedruns themselves or the scene or anything like that. It's more so like, oh yeah, I like that game and like I hear the speedrun's pretty cool, and that's like about as deep as most people get. But to be fair, I think that's pretty common for most games.
Hmm.
But there's always going to be a section of people who are more diehard into the game itself and like especially speedrunning that specific game versus just a more like, because I think of myself when I go to a GDQ and I see like they're doing Monkey Ball Kaizo. I'm like, I like Monkey Ball, that's kind of cool, I'll check that out. And then it's like I'll watch the run and I'm like, that was cool. And then I just never think about it again. And I
Hmm.
think Symphony of the Night falls perfectly in that category of like, oh yeah, that game's cool. Oh, and this speedrun's pretty nice, cool. And then they just never think about it again. And that's, that is how it is sometimes.
Yeah, I've definitely been a victim of that. I try my best to like at least look around, but I mean it is hard. Like there's so many games and it just gets
Yeah.
overwhelming.
I mean, this SGDQ schedule was like the most recent one that just passed was like jam packed with so many like really interesting sounding like runs that
Hmm.
I mean, obviously I was there at the event, so that's kind of my excuse for not watching as many, because there's so much to do at the event that
Yeah.
isn't just being in the stream room. But like there was times where it's just like there's so much good stuff, but like I just can't watch it all, and I'm still trying to like catch up when I have free time, like watching some runs before bed or whatever.
Yeah, I do think SGQ this year, I spent the most time in the stream room that I ever have before. Like it was pretty stacked lineup.
Yeah, yeah, I think I was in there for like 4 games that wasn't my own, that's a lot for me personally.
Yeah, I think I went to like 10 plus.
Oh wow, yeah,
Yeah,
I could
like
see that.
yeah, especially the last day because you usually just sit
Mm,
around. Everything's teared down anyway, so.
yeah, yeah. Final day is great. Stream room day. Just
Mhm.
grab a group of people and find a spot and chill in the stream room.
Definitely. But yeah,
But
really
yeah,
good schedule.
yeah. Just kind of like circling back just to the idea of like how much speedrunning has changed in the
Mhm.
time that I've been there. Like there used to be a time where being the dude that gets runs into GDQ was enough to also start your career, where I feel like nowadays that's like not a thing anymore either, unless you get like insanely lucky.
Mhm.
Um like I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know the exact stats. I know for my run, I think I got like 200 new followers compared to the like 60, almost 70,000 people watching. And that's with like Twitch integrated shout outs, which are now a thing, and all
Mhm.
this other stuff where people literally can just click a button on the screen and it automatically follows you. Um, so like what's the word I'm thinking of? Like the conversion rate of like viewer of GDQ stream to follow an individual who does the run that they're watching is like insanely low, like 0.001%, if
Mhm.
that. And then that's just them clicking the follow button, not necessarily meaning that they're going to show up to all of your streams afterwards or any streams afterwards, even.
Yep.
Um, which is yet another like layer of friction that ends up happening. So compared that to like I think of like the era of GDQ like 2013, 2014, there were people that did like multiple runs at a marathon, and then just like they had an audience from being the person who did multiple runs at a marathon every single marathon, and that
Mhm.
was enough to like kind of keep a subsection of people interested. But that just doesn't really like exist anymore. I think of even like the oh god, what is their name? Mitch.
Mhm.
Mitch, who did the Elden Ring run. It's like, end of the marathon, one of the most hype runs for the run, for the marathon itself, and like nearly peak viewership for his run. And then he comes home, he starts streaming immediately, and it's like viewership wise, follower wise, it's like did much really change?
Mhm.
I personally, I mean, Mitch would know more, but he's just somebody that I follow because I'm a big fan of the Elden Ring speedrunning scene. Um, but that's just one of those things where it's like you would expect that like, oh my god, this much exposure must be really really nice to like help you push your career forward, and it's like in general I feel like it doesn't really do much at all other than like generally get people to maybe notice that you exist maybe sometimes, but I
Mhm.
feel like it's just so saturated with like great runs that it's impossible to
Yeah.
follow everybody.
Yeah. I I didn't even see 200 followers for my run. So,
Yeah.
yeah, like it makes sense. And it's not like I'm complaining or anything, but yeah, like
No, but it is, it is the nature of the experience itself, where
mhm.
I think it's very important, and I think a lot of people get the wrong idea about like if I get my run at GDQ, this will be my chance to like start my career as like a streamer or
No.
whatever, and it's like
No.
that might have worked 10 years ago, maybe,
Yes, maybe.
and even then there was people 10 years ago that also did that didn't end up making a career out of it either.
Mhm.
So it's one of those things where you aren't really getting, if you're doing it for the sake of like some sort of compensation of any kind, whether it's clout or notoriety or anything like that, I would say you're just no, that's not how it works.
Yeah, I say like if you're going into speedrunning in hopes of like making a career out of it, like that's not the way to go into it. Unless you're like
No.
content focused, you don't care about like improving times. There's like a bunch of different layers now, especially today, but
Oh
like
yeah.
yeah, speedrunning like it's popping off, but it's still pretty niche, and if you expect to like just do PB attempts and get big, no. That's not how it works.
Yeah,
I can tell you
exactly.
firsthand.
I mean, that's where most speedrunners that I know that have a following, they are pretty content focused.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're either making scripted YouTube content or they're making stream highlights that garner some amount of like viewership. Everything they do, they're thinking about like how is this going to work on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
even though they primarily do their content on Twitch. There's like a new way to think about the landscape of speedrunning in particular, and I would even argue that speedrunning and that style of like, okay, I'm going to do speedrun content that is speedrunning adjacent, whether it's like a challenge run or if it's like a new type of speedrun or like a meme run or whatever, and I'm going to edit it into a YouTube video. I think even that concept is like slightly outdated, with the like newer tools that people now have access to with like vertical video, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, stuff like that. Like that's like a whole new like wrench in the machine that
Mm-hmm.
people now have to like learn how to utilize for the sake of
Oh,
like how to
oh,
like
my
content
internet
sources.
buffered, but it didn't go out.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. We love to see it. I got scared though.
But yeah, just to reiterate, like how does like I think there's a world where speedrunning is kind of lacking behind in like how does speedrunning fit into this newer age of information with like vertical video through TikTok, YouTube Shorts, things that are meant to be consumed or explained in a short period of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I made my
And I
first
don't,
YouTube short yesterday.
yeah, and I think it's one of those things that a lot of people are sleeping on in a way. I haven't had much success with TikTok in particular with like speedrunning content, but like doing like a 60-second quick explained video of like a specific speedrun or a specific level in a speedrun or something like that. I've seen some of those videos do well on YouTube Shorts and stuff like that. So,
Mm. Yeah,
like, I
like
would
quick
argue,
explanations.
yeah,
Definitely
I
do
would argue
better.
that somebody who's getting started today, their best chance for getting any amount of like buzz would be to make a set of like speedrunning explained or just speedruns themselves on YouTube Shorts,
Mm-hmm.
like like IL speedruns or something like that. You know?
Yeah. I mean, it was funny for me trying out the short thing. Like I just did a clip from GDQ. Like it was 20 seconds. I
Yeah.
didn't put much effort into it. I just made sure it looked good vertically. But it was weird because like in the first hour, like it shot up.
Hmm.
I got like 200 viewers, but then instantly flatlined.
Instantly. Yep. That is the YouTube Short classic.
Okay.
The way that their algorithm works is very brutal.
Mm.
When it comes to like, they're willing to recommend to literally anyone. So it's one of the reasons why I think speedrunning can be very tough on YouTube Shorts. And I might be slightly wrong on this. This is just my own personal like anecdote from messing around with YouTube Shorts. It seems like they will recommend a video to a very diverse group of people, not just your subscribers or anything like that. It is just like whomever happens to scroll by it, scrolls by it. And then they use that as like their test base of like, okay, how is the viewership retention? How is the it's mostly just viewership retention because the algorithm takes care of the click-through rate issue
Mm-hmm.
because it's just served to them. So you never have to worry about like a thumbnail or a title really at all. I mean, the title is just there to give context to what it is that they're actually watching as they're watching it. So it's basically just comes down to if you really want to hack the YouTube Shorts, and it's very similar for TikTok algorithm, is like you just make content that is like very likely that people watch it all the way through and sometimes even like more than once.
Mm.
Um, because all that matters is watch time. And I personally am not a big fan of making content in that style of like trying to grab the viewer's attention and hold it hostage for as long as possible. Um, but it essentially like most YouTube shorts, it's like usually like describing a thing and then having the payoff happen at the very end of the video, but just hyping up the payoff of that thing for like a good like 60 seconds. And it's just like I don't know. This feels very vapid and weird to me personally. So I kind of stopped doing it. But I think there is a way to do it and a way to do it well and a way to make it successful that I personally just don't feel super interested in. But I do think the next set of like speedrunning content creators will probably be ones that are in tuned with the short style content.
Mm. Yeah, it definitely does well. There's no argument there, but I do see like the whole like keeping you interested and getting you to watch it again kind of because what I see in a lot of shorts is the end of it and the beginning will like be connected with like the
Yep.
seamless transition. And I do find
That
it pretty cool, but
it is a cool little like editing trick, but it also is a hack for additional watch
Yeah.
time, because you will
Like I know
often
that.
not
Yeah.
realize, you don't realize that you're watching the same video again, or
Mhm.
it's like subtle enough where you watch the intro of the video again and then you realize, oh yeah, I've already watched this, but you already gave them an extra like 3 to 4 seconds of watch time, which on a
Mhm.
YouTube short is like an extra like 10% of the video just got watched, which helps the watch time percentage like immensely.
Mhm.
So that's
Yeah.
like another creative thing that a lot of people like. Pretty much all my YouTube shorts do the same thing, because it is just objectively like a very powerful tool uh, for
Yeah.
hacking the algorithm.
Yep. All about hacking the algorithm. Not something I've
Yeah,
ever understood.
it's a chore.
Mhm.
Nobody really truly understands it. There's like general rules of thumb that are nice. A lot of tips and tricks that you just kind of pick up if you are open to it and like looking in the right places. You just kind of have to be right place, right time to get some of this information, or you just have to have like people that you know that also like do YouTube. But even then, a lot of people, like my experiences with the YouTube algorithm are also very personal to my channel and the things that I produce. So I might have a biased opinion because the way that YouTube interacts with my channel is different than how it would interact with like a cooking channel or something like that. So like having general ideas for like this is how the algorithm works isn't like 100% accurate
Mhm.
oftentimes.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't tried the whole thing yet. I'm actually surprised how well my YouTube's done without like making scripted, well edited content. I've just been uploading VODs and PBs and whatnot for 5
Yeah,
years, and
that
I mean that does okay. But if you want to get above that, you definitely have to like script something, make something tailored to an audience that will watch it all the way through. And
that's kind of how I got started, honestly, is I didn't edit anything and I didn't script anything. I think I got lucky that the Symphony of the Night randomizer dropped when it did. So I
Mhm.
constantly had a well to go like dip into for like content that is similar enough but also different enough that I can make like essentially infinite iterations. And my YouTube channel just started because my or the success of my YouTube channel started because I always uploaded my PBs to my YouTube channel, like most speedrunners do.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, well, I did, a randomizer speedrun just for funsies. I'll upload that. And that instantly got like, a couple hundred viewers over the course of like a day. And back then, for me, it was like my PBs would get like maybe 30 views over the course of like a year,
Mhm.
right? So seeing like, oh, there's a couple hundred people watching this. That's interesting. I'm getting actual engagement and comments on this thing that had like basically the title I think might have been like Symphony of the Night randomizer speedrun in 1 hour or something odd minutes or whatever, and then
Mhm.
people watched it. Had like a auto generated thumbnail or whatever, and I'm like, huh, that's interesting. What if I put like just a little bit more effort into these videos, and then over the course of like 3 years of me just uploading a different randomizer or a different like anything from my stream for the day, it finally like pushed you finally push the boulder up the hill long enough that it starts to gain some momentum on its own.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I mean, just uploading anything, like literally anything, and if you do it often enough, YouTube's algorithm is good enough to like connect you with some sort of audience eventually.
Yeah, it definitely works eventually. It might take a long, long time, but eventually.
Exactly, yeah. And I mean, this goes for like all YouTubing, not just speedrun YouTube, but like a big part of it is every single video that you upload has the potential to bring in even just one new viewer or anything like
Mhm.
that. Um, so the idea kind of is to for if you're just starting out is you need to upload as often as possible as many different ideas that you have. Like there's no such thing as a bad idea, especially when you're first starting out.
Mhm.
To try as many things as you can, and eventually, just through your own self-reflection, you'll start to realize like, okay, this stuff works, this stuff doesn't. And if you're on top of like keeping track of like, okay, I tried this style of video or this type of thumbnail or this type of title and it did work, so I'm going to try and do that like a little bit more, or how can I do a similar thing to that to see if that also works. Like all that stuff kind of, at least for me, came naturally as I did it more and more and more. And I also kind of made the challenge for myself to just upload every single day, like no matter what. And I've been on that streak for almost 3 years now.
Jeez. I don't know how people upload every day. That just seems like ridiculous. I have
It's
trouble getting
not.
out PBs in that time
Yeah.
or something.
You need to find some sort of content that you can do like every day. Like for
Mm.
me, I was very easy for me to do like 3 randomizer seeds in one stream. That's 3 different videos that I now have to like schedule out over the course of the next 3 days, and then I don't have to worry about it.
Mm.
But I feel like that's harder to do when you're only playing like the normal game, speedrunning it the same way over and over again, expecting to get a PB. And that's why I think speedrunning as like a content form is like very difficult to
Mm.
do if your goal is to just be the best. If you
Yeah.
just want to be the best, it's hard to make good content out of that outside of making like 1 or 2 good videos
Yeah,
of like
people
maybe the world record video or whatever.
yeah, people that are the best I've noticed and have like a good content following do other things.
Hmm.
Like just them being the best isn't enough
Yeah,
today.
like we said earlier, it's not enough to it doesn't have the same draw that it
Mm.
used to. Being a speedrunner in and of itself isn't unique enough or interesting enough to general audiences.
Yeah. And in some ways it's kind of sad because that's what drew me in and what draw a lot of people in that have been around a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just not a thing anymore.
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, I don't know how you feel about like your speedrunning goals and journey and stuff like that. But for me, I've been around for almost 10 years. And like, I kind of got to the point where maybe it's also because I speedrun a game that's not as competitive. It's not as popular overall. Like, we only have like a couple hundred individuals that have submitted to the leaderboard or whatever. Like, I think like 200 runs um, for like the main category, which is still pretty popular, all things considered. There's plenty of leaderboards that have like only 30 runners or whatever. So I'm not trying to say that that Symphony of the Night is an unpopular game, but for me, I have had very little competition, especially in the last like 4 or 5 years. Like Rom Scout is the only other person for a majority of like the speedrunning tenure that I've been around that was like super dominant. And then there was kind of like bits and pieces of people who would get good at the game for a little while and then kind of quit. But outside of that, like I'm the only person that kind of kept up with it. So for me, I'm kind of like running out of like goals for
Hmm.
speedrunning. It's like, I mean, how many more world records can I really like do? And Symphony of the Night has like a million like arbitrary categories, like different low percent categories, different like all bosses, reverse boss order, pacifist, all of these crazy like glitch heavy categories that I've been like slowly dipping my toes into over the course of like 10 years, but it's like I'm even starting to run out of those. So it's like for me, it's either I pick up a new game if I want to continue speedrunning, or do I even want to pick up a new game? Is the idea of like speedrunning still the same anymore for me? Like, do I still care about it the same way I used to? And honestly, for me, I find the making content more fulfilling as like a hobby now than I
Mm.
do the idea of like speedrunning for a personal best. I still will speedrun every once in a while and like really try hard at a particular category, and I'm like, man, this really is fun. This is just as fun as like when I first started, but those feelings are more spaced out. Like, it doesn't happen as often.
Yeah. I'm kind of the opposite. It's why I haven't really done the whole content thing is I fulfilled by doing speedruns. And
Yeah,
if I get bored of one, there's like 50 categories I could play. If I get bored of the game, there's so many other games I could do. And it's
that is
like, yeah,
true. Yeah.
that's what fulfills me, but I know like that doesn't do well. So if I wanted to like, do well, I'd have to do other things that maybe I'm not too into doing. And
Yeah.
I'm just kind of in that crossroad. Like, do I wanna like? It's part of the reason I started doing this. It was like, oh, I have this idea.
Yeah.
It's something I know I'd want to do. Let's see how it does. And I don't care
I
if it
mean, that's
doesn't
how it
do well or
starts.
whatever. It's just fun.
Yeah.
And so I don't
I
know.
mean, that's how I started too. Is it started as like I had zero expectations of like when I started uploading daily, it was just kind of like a challenge to myself to see if I could try something different and try to get good at something that wasn't necessarily speedrunning.
Mhm.
I've also had a background in like fighting games and like other like competitive worlds where I kind of understand like what it's like to get good at something and to like learn something from scratch and like get decent, right? Put in like a couple of like tens of hours of dedicated practice to get some sort of result. So I was like, okay, well maybe I can do it for this whole like content creation thing. And for me, the reason why there's multiple reasons. It's a very creatively fulfilling job if you allow for it to be, or just fulfilling just hobby even, where you get to make all the decisions. Your vision ultimately is like the content you produce can like fully be whatever your vision is for that particular piece of content. You don't have to worry about like editors telling you how you should or shouldn't do things, a manager telling you how you should or shouldn't do things. So having that creative freedom is very, very nice. And I also think that the ceiling for success in content creation is insane. It's bonkers. It's dumb. Fucking XQC got $100 million for saying fucking the thing, and like everybody loves it and claps and just eats it up, and it's insane. Being a content creator has a infinite ceiling as far as like monetary success, right? And it's also like it's genuinely difficult. Don't get me wrong, but to get to some level of success where you can sustain yourself isn't that difficult. You do need to be lucky and you do need to work really hard, but I feel like that's kind of the same for like most things that end up making you money. So in my mind, it was always like I could do this, or I could go back to school and get a degree for a job that I don't really care about. But this is more creatively fulfilling, and the ceiling is absolutely insane. Like you can end up making like more money than a doctor that has spent their whole life like studying to become a doctor. So, you know, I think I'll roll the dice on this whole content thing.
Yeah, I mean, I always am a big advocate of doing whatever you're passionate about doing.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I've been unemployed for like a year and a half, and it's because I've always worked like fast food jobs or something. Those suck ass.
Tell me about it, dude.
Sucks ass.
Yeah, I worked fast food and I worked retail, and I worked my last job before quitting was Starbucks for 5 years. So
wow, 5.
5 years. I ended up there's an alternate timeline where I move up the corporate ladder through Starbucks, and I'm miserable, but I'm so glad I got out.
I worked at a Burger King for 3 years, but I didn't move up anywhere. Don't do that. But part of it was so like anxiety inducing too.
Yeah.
And I learned like over the time, like I have bad anxiety, so I need to get out of these jobs that are awful.
To be fair, I will say, I used to think, I mean, I'm not trying to diminish what you're saying about your anxiety at all, but I also do suffer from like some generalized anxiety as well. And I will say that like fast food jobs, they definitely exacerbate it. Like they are kind of designed where the people on the front lines, the people who are like at the bottom of the totem pole, are receiving like all of the stress at any given moment in time. And as you go higher up the chain of command, there's like less general they're not as in touch with what's going on the floor at any given time, and all. I could talk about it for hours. Oh my god.
Yeah, I bet.
Whoo-wee.
Yeah, I was always on the bottom, so you can imagine. But
yeah, the only reason I moved up is because I was like, I want to do something about this. Like I didn't the raise that I ended up getting for becoming like a shift supervisor versus just being like a general service like barista essentially was like 80 cents an hour, which is in the grand scheme of things nothing. And like I got like insane, like much more responsibility on top of it. But the reason I took the job wasn't for any other reason other than like I knew that I could help other people's circumstance by like just running things better, because I had so many supervisors that just didn't give a shit and made everybody's lives worse by just not doing a good job, and like they're the ones that are supposed to be in charge of shit.
Oh, I have plenty of stories. Yep.
Yeah. But
I can talk about being forced onto positions. I even told them like, this will give me maybe a panic attack. Don't make me do this. And they're like, no, we're putting you on here. Deal with it.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay.
Or like, hey, this is like genuinely dangerous. We shouldn't do this. And then they do it anyways. And then there's an accident. And it's like, well, fuck. I mean, what can I tell you?
There was a fire at Burger King once. It was contained, but it shouldn't have been there.
Yeah.
Luckily, it wasn't caused by me. I didn't work in the back, but I mean, the main story I love to talk about is my last job was a Jimmy John's delivery driver, and I only was able to do it for like 4 months before I got sick of it. And part of it was because I gave him a 2 weeks notice, like, hey, I'm gonna start going to therapy. Here's my 2 weeks notice that I can't work this day. They scheduled me anyway, and then threatened to write me up if I didn't work.
Yeah, all
It's like,
that fun,
okay,
like should be illegal things for business owners or employers to be able to do. They can just get away with doing that.
hmm
Isn't that fun?
and then in the group chat, someone texted, "Hey, I'm not going to be able to show up for my shift today. I'm going to the ER." Yeah, they got, or at least the manager said they would write them up for that. I don't know
Yeah,
if they actually did, because I didn't get written up. They just threatened, so I don't know if they actually did. But
yeah,
once
that's
I saw that, I
miserable.
was out. I was like, no, I'm not
Yeah, that's
dealing with this bullshit.
huge red flag, and it's unfortunately common for
hmm
all sorts of like entry level jobs, even like higher level jobs. There's like tons of coercion and like abuses of power and all this terrible garbage. I just have to deal with an algorithm, I guess,
hmm
and like making the almighty algorithm happy. But that's not too bad. It feels
hmm
less personal when things don't go my way. It's like, dang, I got unlucky.
Yeah, yeah, that could suck. But doing these jobs that suck kind of made me realize like I don't want to work for someone because they usually treat you like dog shit. I want to be
Oh
my own
yeah.
boss. So I started doing DoorDash for a little bit. But even still,
Mm,
it's not like that fulfilling. So
no.
I've
And
kept having it in my head like I want to try to do content stuff somehow.
mhm.
So I've been just talking about it a lot more.
Yeah.
You saw me at the panel at SGQ front row.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
tried to get my
I think
info.
that's there's a lot of good stuff from that GDQ panel for sure. Big recommend anybody who's interested in speedrunning content creation or just content creation in general. There's like a lot of good general information in the SGDQ. Oh gosh, what is the panel called? I don't even remember.
Like I
They
don't
just
remember the like subtitle for it, but they
yeah
just uploaded it to their YouTube, so
yeah they just
you can
recently
now view
uploaded
it.
it to the YouTube. So
Yeah,
the speedrunning content or speedrunning YouTube panel, I think something along those lines.
like speedrunning content creation on YouTube or something like that.
Yeah, whatever it's called. There's a lot of great, a lot of very smart, very successful people on the panel, and myself somehow I snuck my way up on there. But I mean, in the general scheme of things, I'm still pretty new
hmm
to like the YouTube and like speedrunning YouTube because that panel much more was talking about like scripted content and like making content that has the potential to go like really big.
hmm
And that's one of the reasons I switched my main channel to doing that, and I started a second channel for daily uploads. Because my main channel used to just be daily stream uploads of whatever it was that I was playing for that day, and that got me some amount of success. And then I said, okay, well, if I can do that, can I like shoot for something bigger, something that I know has the potential to do more that will also be even more creatively fulfilling? Because I started to get a little burnt out on the idea of like, all right, time to boot up randomizer again, and that's my video for the day. Because like for me it felt like okay, I could be doing more. Like I
hmm
reached that point where I was like satisfied with the starting of the YouTube process, and I was ready to take on more of a creative role. And like I only started doing that this year, like January. So it's a relatively new thing for me, and I've done like not as many videos as I would like, but like a handful of videos this year that I could say that I'm pretty darn proud of, all things considered.
hmm Yeah, that's cool. It's hard to make that switch too, but yeah, I've always heard it's important to like make another YouTube channel if you're gonna start. Like if your original channel is just a backlog of all your stuff. Like,
I mean, depending on the size that you're at, and like if you have a current audience that is already watching you,
hmm
I do think that making a second channel is good at that point.
hmm
Um, I think I did it the wrong way personally, because my main channel just youtube.com/dragonblitz was daily uploads. And I said, okay, but I want my main channel to now be something else. And then
hmm
I made a second channel that essentially took over the role of what my main channel was, which was daily uploads.
Yeah.
Realistically, I should have just like started the new channel and then did the new type of content on the new channel.
hmm
But my ego was like, no, I want my main channel to be the thing that is the most polished and the most creatively fulfilling and the thing I can be the most proud of at any given time. When realistically, I should have just like renamed the channel or something like that, and it would have been fine. Um,
Yeah, I did it the other way where, well, I haven't really started content yet, but
yeah,
I've kept my like popular channel as the way it is and made a new
yeah.
one for other stuff.
I think that is the correct way to do it, and then you just funnel whoever is
Hmm.
willing to follow you into the new channel, and then it should pick up steam on its own. And also, you don't have to worry about any baggage of like right now, I have a lot of dead subscribers on my main channel who just don't watch the new style of videos. So I just have like an inflated sub number compared to like the people that will regularly watch the channel.
Hmm.
Um, and that's something that happens to all channels over time, especially if you're like gaining subscribers at a relatively slow rate. Um, and if you've been doing YouTube for a long time, you're just going to accrue a certain amount of subscribers that just never unsubscribe.
Hmm.
But that also just hurts my general like click through rate because they will get like recommended a video of mine and then they don't click on it because it's like I don't really watch those anymore, and it's just like it hurts your chances in the algorithm. So definitely making a new channel I think is better. It's just more work to start with. But
Hmm.
YouTube did recently change their partnership requirements and made them more lenient. So it used to be that you needed like 1,000 subscribers and like 30 hours of watch time. And now,
4,000 in a year.
yeah, 4,000 in a year. That's what I'm thinking of. 4,000 watch hours in a year or whatever. Um, and now it's like significantly less. It's like 500 subscribers and like less watch time in general. So now is the best time to get into YouTube. That's for sure. If you're just starting out.
Yeah, mine still says 4,000 public watch hours and 1,000, so hopefully that changes because I haven't had enough public watch hours to be monetized ever.
Yeah,
And the upload.
uploading a lot helps with that. Just because you just have more people. Like even if it's the same person that watches, but they watch every upload, it still ends up like even if it's a low number of views per video, just having more videos helps a lot with that.
Well, let me tell you, uploading these to YouTube has been helping a lot.
Oh
So,
yeah, long form. That's another thing that is nice about like unedited, like just VOD style content is like the watch hours. For the people that do watch and just like put it on in the background or
hmm.
fall asleep to the videos, it's like those watch hours are really nice to have.
Hmm.
They help push long form content much farther than like you would think originally. Like you
Yeah,
would think, oh, this video isn't like edited all the way through and it doesn't have snappy editing cuts and it's not cut like a Mr. Beast video, so it's obviously going to do poorly. It's like no, like some people just like to have something on in the background, and that's
yeah.
enough.
Like they're obviously not going to perform as well, or maybe
Yeah,
like not at all as well, but people will watch it. Like
there is still
it's not
a
going to be
market.
dead. So.
Yeah, there is a market for long form. Like sometimes when I'm like looking for something to fall asleep because I fall asleep to YouTube videos all the time, I'm
Hmm.
looking for like, this video is too short. Like
Yeah.
this video is only 20 minutes. Like it's gonna be like ending by the time that I'm actually falling asleep, and I want a video that's slightly longer than that, or like a podcast or something like that. Like there's obviously markets for stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, and I mean that's one of the main reasons my channel even exists in the first place is because I did longer form content, which was just hour long, randomizer playthroughs
Hmm.
and doing that over and over again, and that was enough to like get momentum in the first place.
Yep. Yeah, it's hard to like figure out what you're gonna do though. Like
Yeah,
if you're gonna make like a long form thing like that. Like I mean, this took me years to figure out. Hey, this sounds like a fun idea, but sometimes like you can upload if you do like a long enough speed run, it can help a little bit. But it,
just start picking up RPG speedruns.
yeah, exactly. See, I suffered forever because my speed run's 5 minutes long.
Yeah,
It's
I
like,
mean that's
well,
like can't even put mid rolls on that.
yeah. Well, I can't put ads on my channel anyway. I'm not monetized.
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah. I don't remember when those changes go through, but they're relatively recent, so it's probably going to be like a month or two
yeah.
before they actually get implemented.
I think I'm at 1.6K, and I think it's 3K now instead of 4K. So fingers
Mm,
crossed. But
yeah,
would
yeah.
be
I mean,
nice.
also just uploading more
Hmm.
regularly, just in general. Like that, there's like so many different like little tiny hacks and stuff for that. That like just comes with that kind of understanding just comes with time and like trying things out.
Yeah, I've definitely been uploading a lot more recently. It helps to have like at least one video a week, aka weekly
Yeah.
podcast thing.
Yeah,
So.
anything regular, like anything that you can do regularly as often as possible is like, in my opinion, like the best way to work on anything really. Like just to
Hmm.
get as much practice as possible, so you can make the actual quality of it better, as well as just for the sake of like having an audience expectation of like, okay, this happens with this amount of regularity, so I can expect a video on this day or every day or whatever it is.
Hmm. Yep. So about the whole like properly scripted videos, because I'm trying to learn
Mm-hmm.
more about that too. It's funny, like the first video I ever uploaded on that other channel I talked about, it has like 100 subs, while my main one has like 1K. So
Mm-hmm.
very small, but I uploaded like I put all the world records in a speed run together. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
for some reason, Kotaku wrote an article about it, and now it has 8,000 views,
No,
which
okay.
was cool. But then I did similar videos, and they didn't get a lot of views at all. So it's like, oh, now what do I do if this doesn't do well anymore? It's
Mm.
like, and you recently switched to making properly scripted, like very recent. So how does
Um,
that all work?
it's tough. It's a very vague kind of like world that you're going into. For me, it kind of was like, okay, I have an idea of the kinds of videos that I personally like that are of this style of like scripted videos. I have some people that I like to watch and that I'll watch regularly. I think it also helps if you are somebody that
Mm-hmm.
genuinely likes watching YouTube content and can like immerse yourself with like this is what people are doing. These are the types of creators I like. These are the types of things that these creators do that I will, kind of implement into my own with my own ideas and my own style. And like for me, the first couple of videos were just me trying out whatever. Like I had an idea and I said, screw it. No matter what, I'm getting this done and I'm doing it as quick as possible. My original plan was to upload every single week, which
Mm. Yeah.
not happening
Mm-mm.
anymore. Scope creep kind of took over and was like, yeah, you could upload every week if you barely edit anything and don't script like 90% of the video. And honestly, just it's impossible. At least for someone of my scale and with my skill level, I'm not fast enough and I'm not experienced enough to be able to take an idea from start to finish and do it all in a week with the level of editing that I personally find satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I just started off with like, okay, I'll just take a part of my stream that I thought was fun and I'll highlight that into like put that into a video and just cut it up without any voiceover. And then I'm like, okay, would doing voiceover in small parts help the overall narrative of the type of video that I'm making? Because that's another thing that just over time I've realized that like most videos that do well and have like mostly it's the watch time thing is having a narrative that is satisfying from beginning to end that also fits into whatever it is that your title and thumbnail kind of sets up.
Mm-hmm.
Like my most recent video, I think is an example of that, where a big part of that video, I was very anxious about the video um, narrative because it felt like, okay, I'm explaining the speed run, but the setup to the video, it's called How Castlevania Speedrunners Overcome Impossible Odds. And the core conceit of the video is there's a speedrun for Castlevania Aria of Sorrow where RNG manipulation is used to beat the game insanely fast. Um, by taking advantage of like rare drops that are super overpowered but are balanced behind the fact that you're not supposed to get them very often. Like, some of these drop rates are like 1%, 2%, 0.25%, like super rare stuff.
Jesus.
Um, but the RNG manipulation makes it all like cohesive and makes the run fit together. And it's like a very entertaining run. And it's pretty popular for like, it's the most popular speedrun category for that particular game. Um, and the video just wasn't like fitting together the way that I wanted to until I'm like, okay, let me like take a step back and like look at like how is the overarching narrative like fitting together with that concept of like overcoming impossible odds was the title. So like I should probably spend some amount of time, especially like near the end of the video, really discussing like what are the actual statistical odds of a run like this happening without the RNG manipulation. And I had to do a little bit of math and like write it all out. And it's like 1 in 100 million
Oh my god.
without RNG manipulation. So like literally impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Not literally impossible, but basically like no human being will ever get that lucky in their lifetime. So it goes to show like the power of the RNG manipulation itself. Like that was the overarching narrative, and that was like the aha moment of fitting that piece in and being like, okay, there is now a thing that you can follow from beginning to end. I've set up a question of how, or not a question, but I've set up a premise of speedrunners overcoming impossible odds, and then I pay off that expectation at the end by being like, okay, these odds literally are like impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So like it makes the watching experience like feel validating in that regard, because otherwise, I mean, if you think about your own experience watching a video and the video sets up a premise and then the ending is just kind of like falls flat or doesn't actually like deliver on that premise, it's like, well, that didn't feel good. And then you just
Mm-hmm.
kind of, it doesn't give you a positive association with that channel or that video. You're less likely to subscribe, all that fun stuff. Or if it doesn't like bring you along, or like help you feel like the narrative is moving, then you might just click off, and then that's like terrible for watch time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's very
These-
interesting. I've definitely not like you don't notice it at first, but when you've watched enough, you're like, oh yeah, I like this content that has a payoff. I can
Mhm.
recognize it has this flow to it. I don't know. It's funny. I just hear like scripted content is the way, and
Yes, but also I think you have to be kind of really really into that style of video personally. I feel like
mm-hmm,
if you just tried to force it, um it wouldn't necessarily do. I think you could make it do well, but I don't necessarily know if that's like the best idea. Just but I mean, I
well,
don't
I'm
know what
not
I'm
saying
talking about.
force anything. Like
Yeah.
obviously, yeah, don't do that. I just mean like after watching enough content, I realized like, oh yeah, that is what I like watching. I see
Yeah,
why it
if
does
you
well now. You
yeah,
you don't recognize that as just a casual viewer, maybe. You're just like, ooh, content fun, haha. But
I think the more that
oh,
you watch, the more you realize like the general tropes and the general flow of things, and it is kind of like not formulaic, but like it is accessible. I would say that
mm-hmm,
style of video is accessible because at the end of the day, it is just like an essay. Like if you're from high school doing like a 3-point essay or whatever,
mm-hmm,
like that. Those are concepts that are kind of like very general, very accessible. Like that style of like of argumentation or just like general information conveyance, the video essay is very like known for general public. So if it's on a subject that people find entertaining or interesting, they are going to relate to it a little bit better. Um, I would argue that it doesn't have to be the way. If that works for you, that's awesome, and
mm-hmm.
that's really like there's plenty of space for it. I will say, like, there's no oversaturation of scripted content in like the speedrunning scene, and on top of that, I don't think there really ever could be like a saturation point because it's like, um, we talked about it in the panel, but it's like it's very often that creators will be like, "Oh no, my video is in competition with another video," but in reality, it's like the viewers get two good videos to watch, and like most
Mm-hmm.
people, if they watch YouTube content, they watch a lot of YouTube content, and they will get to it eventually, or like we'll just watch those two videos back to back or whatever. Um, but I would argue that there is probably room for other types of content in the speedrunning scene that like I was referring to earlier with like the YouTube Shorts thing. Like there's probably stuff that the YouTube meta and like speedrunning content meta is pretty far behind on when you look at like general audiences and like what they like to watch. I'm not a normie myself. I don't like a lot of like general like TikTok. I'm not on TikTok at all. I don't really watch YouTube Shorts,
Mm-hmm.
but I know that that is genuinely like the future of a big portion of like eyeballs is going to be on those platforms. But for me, it's just like I don't like that kind of content, so I don't necessarily engage with it or like create it that much because it's coming from a place of like I feel obligated to make a YouTube short, but I don't actually like the contents of a YouTube short in general.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's just my perspectives. But I am willing to accept that there are going to be people that will see that there is an opening in this one like location, whether it's shorts content or just making content that is like speedrunning adjacent, but isn't necessarily directly me doing a speedrun. Um, and they're going to find those niche little bits that are have the potential to blow up. I think
Mm-hmm.
YouTube like scripted YouTube content is like a tried and true thing that you can get into, but I would argue there's probably more creative or more things that we're not even aware of right at this moment that will be like the new speedrunning YouTube meta if you want to get
Mm-hmm.
big.
Yeah, I mean the meta changes all the time, so it's impossible to
Exactly.
know for sure. But yeah, I'm definitely someone that's like, don't do anything like you don't personally enjoy. Like
Yeah.
I will never make a TikTok account. I just don't care. But I
Yeah.
do watch shorts fairly frequently, so I was like, oh, I'll make one It'll be
Yeah.
fun. It's like 20 seconds. It was easy to make. I enjoyed it. You know, it
That
popped off
is,
for a little bit and then flatlined, but at least it did what it did. It's like, yeah.
I will say that is the nice thing about making short form content is you can make a lot of it and it's very low investment.
Mhm.
You know, you don't have to sit there and scrub through a timeline of like a 35-minute long video with like, hundreds of like nearly 1,000 different cuts and like edits and things. You have a very short timeline of things to like
Mhm.
worry about if you're editing the video in like Premiere or whatever. Or if you're just uploading a highlight. That happened like the Twitch recently changed like their clips to like upload vertical clips and stuff like that. Like
Mhm.
that's like an easy way to get started.
Yeah, very easy. I like or at least I would want to do it in a way where it's like a clip it of a longer thing, and they can like
Hmm.
link to it. Like, if you want to see the full thing, watch this. Like, I
Yeah,
feel like that could be good almost for like world records or something. Like, you
yeah,
could
I
show the
can
end of
see
a
that.
world record and be like, "Hey, if you want to watch the full thing, here it is."
Hmm.
And it could be
Or
good for
like
a
an
promotional
exciting.
aspect because it won't do
Mhm.
well in like the viewership because they count that separately towards other things. Like, if you look at the
Yep.
YouTube studio, there's like a bar for watch hours, and then there's like a gigantic bar for shorts views. It's like in the
Yeah,
millions. It's like, okay, yeah, I'll hit that. No, but
exactly. Yeah, there is just a ton of viewership that is available there. I would argue, and this is something that like one of the reasons why I'm not like super pressed on doing the shorts thing is one, I already have somewhat like it's not a massive audience, but I have an audience that is willing to watch me do stuff. So I don't feel the need to like, I think shorts is really good for like, I need somebody to watch something of mine. Like I just need it to get in the eyes of somebody because like an actual edited YouTube video on an account that you upload with 0 subscribers.
nope. Yeah, at least it took an hour and a half. Pretty good. Um, please hold. Uh, hi YouTube. You're the only people that can see this right now. Uh, please reconnect, though. Man, when it disconnects for a long time now. Oh,
You're back.
I'm back.
Nice.
Okay. Well, pretty good streak. It was like an hour and a half without an issue, so I
Yeah,
mean,
not bad, not
not
bad.
bad, not bad. So I just missed the last 30 seconds.
Oh, what was the last thing you remember me saying?
Oh God.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was in the middle of discussing YouTube Shorts. I think is great for content creators that are just starting out or just need eyes on anything that you're doing. Um, because if you have a YouTube channel with like 0 subscribers and you upload like a normal video, it likely will get like 0 or maybe 1 views.
Hmm.
But if you upload a YouTube Short, it's probably going to get like 100.
Yeah, at
You
least.
know, something like that. Because something about the way that the algorithm works for YouTube Shorts is like YouTube Shorts is willing to put, at least for a very small group of people, they're very experimental with what they show to people.
Hmm.
Um, and it has the potential to blow up if enough of those people watch it all the way through. And that's really it. So the barrier to entry for YouTube Shorts is so much lower. They're lower investment. You can make a YouTube short on your phone. You can make one through like the Twitch clip maker or whatever that they just edited. So if you're already streaming, it's very easy to start uploading clips that could just be YouTube Shorts. And they might not always hit, but if you do enough of them, eventually one of them could hit, and that could be a decent start to gaining some amount of content creation momentum. Um,
Hmm. Yep.
but there's many different ways to go about creating content, and I really do think it comes down to like whatever is the most fulfilling and most rewarding to the individual, and like trying to make that work as much as possible.
Yeah. Going into content, it's definitely do not force yourself to do something you don't want to do. It has to
Hmm.
100% be something you were like, yes, I want to do this, not I need to do this.
I mean, I will argue that there's kind of going to need to be a balance of both, because
Mm.
I'll start a project and I'm like, I'm very confident, I'm very like excited to get started. And then for me personally, halfway through, I'm like, oh my God, I have to do all this like extra editing stuff, or like, oh no, the script, I need to rewrite this, or, all these things that feel like in the moment, oh, this is a pain.
Mhm.
But the end product is what I'm like, realistically, what I'm the most proud of if I put that extra effort in. So to a certain extent, you have to put like guardrails up or some sort of guideline of like, I need to get this done by this point, or I need to work on this for this amount of time by this point. At least for me, because I'm
Mhm.
also a pretty unregulated, like scheduled person. I'm pretty I don't want to say lazy, but I think people could perceive me as lazy. Due to just my general habits. But I do have to enforce some amount of like, okay, I got to get something done. Even though I don't feel like it in this moment, it's important to have some sort of regularity with that.
Yeah. I think what's been stopping me is knowing that I would not enjoy a certain few aspects of the process, but
Oh,
yeah.
I'll say it out loud. I think editing sucks. Being
Yeah.
in front of an editing software with a bunch of different stuff, it's overwhelming. It's frustrating. It's tiring. It's something that I am not particularly a huge fan of, especially because every time I watch back my videos, I'm like, I could have done this so much better
Mhm.
now because I have better editing experience in general. But then that just leads to scope creep of like the ideas that you have, where it's like, okay, now I have to learn how to start like implementing like After Effects, motion graphics, and all this other stuff. And I mean, I don't even mess around with a lot of like the high end editing techniques, because for me, it's like it's a rabbit hole that you can fall down and like get lost in very
Mhm.
easily. Um, when most of the time it's not even like necessary.
Mhm.
But for me, I don't know what it is about making videos. The little bit of my brain that has like the perfectionism kind of comes out. I think it's the same reason I started speedrunning, to be honest, is like
Mhm.
speedrunning, I think, also lends itself to people who are perfectionists, at least the people who stick with it long term.
Mhm. I'm a perfectionist, so I understand.
Yeah, when
Yeah.
you watch back your PB and you're like, even if it's like world record, and you're like, wow, that fucking sucked.
Mhm.
That was dog shit.
Oh,
It-
half my world records and like category extensions that don't maybe matter as much say, "Oh, garbage run." Yeah,
yeah,
shit run.
exactly.
So yeah, I get it.
There's a reason that trope exists of like person just gets like world record, blows everybody else out of the water, and the run comment on like speedrun.com is like Lamau bad.
Yeah, cringe.
Yeah, something like that. Because that's just a very the people who make it to the top at speedrunning, whoever get the people who get the best times in speedrunning often are that style of person, that type
Mhm.
of perfectionist who is like, it's not, it's not good enough.
Mhm.
Like my most recent world record that I'm the most proud of, the any percent world record in Symphony of the Night, I got it down to a 1626, which at the time was a meme time because at the end of the game, spoilers for Castlevania Symphony of the Night, if you haven't played, close your ears now. Um, there's a Bible quote that Dracula drops at the end, which is really funny. The dialogue is very funny. It just has that old '90s PlayStation game charm. But he drops a Bible quote for Matthew 16:26, and at the time, I think my PB was like a 16:42. So we
Mhm.
used to joke like, "Oh, wouldn't it be funny if the any percent world record was a 16:26?" And at the end of the run, he says Matthew 16:26. I eventually got to that time,
Mhm.
and it was like insane to think about. But by the time I got to the 16:26, it was like my sum of best was like 15 seconds better than that, and it was like, this run's bad.
Mhm.
I made a
Oh,
bunch of mistakes. But like even just like a year and a half prior, it's like, no, dude, the 16:26, like I think it was my actual sum of best was a 16:26. So it's like, okay, it's theoretically possible. So maybe one day we'll
Mhm.
get there. And then we started discovering new strats and started getting a lot better at the game. And then it's like, okay, never mind, this run's bad.
Yeah, it takes a while, but the important thing is like your run will never be perfect. Fucking deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's just
Even
how it
like
is.
oh gosh. They just uploaded a recent video. I'm stalling. I'm stalling. I'm stalling. I'm stalling. Let me find it. I'm just gonna real quick. It was the video on the 16-star world record.
What, Bismuth?
Yeah, Bismuth. Thank you. I'm trying to find. Yes, the Perfect Mario Speedrun Explained by Bismuth just came out yesterday,
Mhm.
and it's like theoretically obviously a lot of people are calling it the perfect speedrun, but it's like in the video, spoilers,
Hmm.
it's not perfect. There are
No.
mistakes that happen in that video.
Hmm. He goes over
So and he goes over it in the actual video itself. But it just goes to show that even though what most people would consider like near perfect, like one of the greatest speedrunning achievements of all time, and it's like, yeah, but you know, you still could have saved like 10 seconds.
that.
But it's like those 10 seconds are like inhuman levels of adjustments and perfection.
Hmm. Yeah, like the only runs that can be perfect are like dragster or something,
Yeah.
where you can like tie the task easily. Like
Yeah, even like Mario 1 isn't at like task levels yet, and it has like literal like frame rules where you can only save so much time.
yeah, there's still one that
Yeah.
is not in the record, and then there's so many frames in 8.4 that are just ridiculous, and I don't think it'll ever tie the task personally. I think it'll get close, but I think it's just too ridiculous to tie it with the amount of frame perfect
The
bullshit you
task
have to
that
do.
doesn't the task that doesn't do left plus right, right?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
left plus
That's
right's
not
banned, so
exactly.
yeah, I'm not going off of that. But I mean, humans have the human sum of best ties the task, the human
Okay.
theory one. So like, it is possible humans can do it, but it's just too much.
Yeah, I can see that.
So it'll never be perfect, and yeah. So if you want your run to be perfect, just too bad. Just be happy with what you did, and it's so
Yeah.
hard to have that mindset. I mean, it took me forever to start being more happy about things, and I'm still not
Yeah.
all the time, but
Yeah,
it's just
there's a lot of crossover between that and content creation as well. The idea
Mhm.
of like just being happy with like something. Like
Yeah, and
my
I think
most
that's
recent
stopping
video,
me too. Is
Yeah.
like, I'd record something I'm like, oh, I don't want like the way that sounds. Let's buy a pop filter. Oh, I want to edit this, but I don't want to edit. Oh, it
Yeah.
doesn't sound good. No, all right, give up.
I could already point out like my most recent video went live yesterday, and I could already point out like 3 things I would have done differently. But at the end of the day, you just gotta go live eventually. You
Mhm.
just gotta post, post public on your video eventually. Otherwise, it will just be an infinite loop of like making the perfect quote unquote video. But it's what's the quote? Perfect is the enemy of good enough, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
like that is a hard lesson to learn. And one of the things that I not force but like really push myself to do, which is to just get to a point where I'm happy and I'm like, okay, it's good enough, just let it go and start working on the next project.
Mm-hmm.
Like even the people that are at the top of their game are still like, I imagine anybody who is like a household name for like YouTube like content creation or like speedrun content creation, as soon as they upload their video, they're like, okay, I could have changed this, or I would have done this differently, but I just needed to get something out the door.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so nothing's ever going to be perfect, and you have to just learn to deal with it. Is the
Yeah.
important thing, because it's more important
And
that your content's out there, no matter what that
oftentimes
content is.
great example is my most recent video. Is not only is there stuff in it that this is so silly, but there's stuff in it that I would have changed, and the actual like video, there was like a tiny little baby encoding error on one section that caused like some garbage pixels to show up for like a few frames, and like I saw that and I'm like, I could just re-encode this right now and wait like another 30 minutes and then upload it. And I was like, no, I just want the video to go live. Like I'm done. It's fine. You know what? If somebody complains that there's like an encoding error, whatever. People, and that's the thing, is most people only watch the video once and it'll go by and they'll be like, oh, that was weird, and they never even think about it. So it's like the things that when you're so close to a project, it's so easy to point out all the flaws, but most people don't engage with it. Like 99% of people don't engage with it nearly as in depth as you do. So like, as long as you get the broad strokes correct, like that's good enough.
Yeah,
and
like
most people won't notice the difference.
99% of the things you care about, no one will even notice.
Exactly. To be fair, there are certain like edits and like little bits and jokes that I'll put in videos that are just for me. It's like I don't care if anybody get, like I made a reference to one of my videos. I made a reference to a freaking band called I Set My Friends on Fire. That nobody, there's probably like 3 people in the world that not really, they were relatively popular, but they were popular in like 2009 when I was like a edgy teenager. So like there are very few people that are going to get that reference, but I'm gonna put it in the video, and that's for me. So and if nobody gets the joke, it's whatever, it's fine.
Yeah.
And and that video is like one of my best performing videos like of all time. And I don't think there's a single comment on it about that joke. It's just, just goes over people's head. There might be a couple people that might have chuckled at it, but
Hey, if it works. I mean, it's always important to do the content you like, so just throw in whatever is like, haha, that's funny for me. It
yeah,
probably just makes it more
exactly.
enjoyable that way.
It's like I said earlier, it's about the creative. Um, it's much more creatively fulfilling to do it in that way. Obviously, there is a balance that you want to reach, because like if I wanted to optimize YouTube as a job to just make the most amount of money as possible, it's like I'm gonna upload like top 10 videos or something that is just like super easy to pick up in the algorithm, like super generic and like easy for those kinds of things to get spread around and for it to become just like whatever it is. There are like fast track ways to getting like a ton of YouTube subscribers and a ton of watch time and a ton of like advertising money, but it's like that's not creatively fulfilling, because it's like I'm doing content for the sake of the end goal, which is some amount of viewership / money, where it's like, okay, I want to do that, but I also want to do it with like speed running, the thing that I've spent like 10 years of my life doing and I'm really passionate about, and like I want to keep that passion going in like alternative ways.
Yeah, I think I've been echoing that sentiment throughout this
Yeah.
episode too. Like, yeah, only do it if you care about it. Like, don't try to go into something you don't want to do
Yeah.
just because it'll do better. Like, that's not like a good mindset to be in.
Yeah, there's a ton of like especially if you're coming from a speedrunning background, there's a ton of people who are just like speedrunning legends that just are like, okay, I just have a real job now, and it's like I just work a 9 to 5, and it's a pretty chill gig, and I'll still speedrun every once in a while, and it's like they're still like legends of their game. Like
Yeah, go off, but
Romscout's an example. Like dude was untouched for like a decade of speedrunning Symphony of the Night, and now he works for Direct Relief. I mean, he does like speedrunning marathons as part of his like job now, which is really really cool.
yeah,
But ultimately, like he doesn't really stream speedruns anymore. He's working his job.
yeah. And hey, if that makes you happy, go off.
Exactly.
That's what's important, is always going with what you're passionate about. Don't do anything
Yeah.
you like personally hate doing.
Yeah. Pretty much.
That's been my like eye-opening sentiment throughout the past couple of years, I guess. So I
Yeah.
like to echo
I
that.
do. I can very much agree that you want to do it because you want to do it, and if you force yourself to do it, if you're gonna force yourself to do something for money, there's so many better things you could be doing to force yourself for
Exactly.
money.
Yeah, I said it,
Doing
if I cared about like streaming for money, I would have stopped 5 years ago.
exactly, yeah.
Like,
Like if you're doing it for the money, like one, you just don't stream. Like stream.
exactly.
Well, yes and no. Streaming can be a very lucrative source of money under certain circumstances. I think Twitch in particular gets a lot of flack for being a relatively like not friendly to creators as far as like revenue splits and stuff like that. But at the time, and honestly even right now, they do have probably the most comprehensive monetization options out of every possible like content platform,
Yeah.
outside of like people just literally giving you money on Patreon or something like that.
It is the easiest to like start earning.
Yeah. I mean, you're not going to make a lot, and
No.
Twitch will take a huge cut of it. But if you're just wanting to get started with monetization of internet content, like, Twitch, there's a reason why a lot of people start with Twitch. The barrier to entry there is very, very low.
What, 3
YouTube
average
is kind of,
viewers and 50 followers? Like, okay.
you could also just send Twitch, I think like $75, and you just get affiliate. They just give it
What?
to you regardless. Yeah, you can
You
just
can pay
pay
to
for
win?
affiliate.
Okay.
You literally
Wow.
can pay to win. Yeah.
Wow.
That,
That's
most people don't know
interesting.
that, but you can literally just pay for affiliate.
Had no idea.
Yeah. I
Okay.
wouldn't recommend it because
No.
it's very easy to get to the requirements. But yeah,
Well,
it's
it
like
still took me like a year, but yeah.
yeah, but it's also like, during that year, how much would you even be able to monetize?
Nothing. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So it's not worth spending the $75 in my opinion. But some people will do it because, Twitch makes them feel whatever about being an affiliate for one reason or another. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, it is. A sudden storm just appeared. I was like, wow, I look so much darker. And then I heard thunder. So hopefully my power doesn't go out.
Yeah, I hope so too.
That'd be weird. I hope I wouldn't like corrupt my recording or something either. I don't know how that all works.
What video format are you recording in?
I was recommended to do. I used to do MP4, but now I don't.
Yeah, then you'll be fine.
Okay.
As long as you're not
Okay.
recording it, that's exactly why you don't want to record an MP4 on OBS, because if OBS crashes or fails, it corrupts the entire file. Where
Got it.
all the other formats will not. That won't happen.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I recently switched because I forget what it's called. MKV, I think.
Yeah,
Okay. Because like you can just remux it in OBS itself and it's super easy.
yeah, exactly.
So there's a nice little OBS tip for anyone watching, I guess. But
Yeah,
yeah, I was
I
streaming it.
still,
I was recording an MP4 until like a few months ago. So thank
yeah,
God I've never had any issues.
I still record an MP4, and I haven't had those issues. But
Mm,
like, I'm always risking it. There's always the chance that
yeah.
everything goes awry. But I should just be recording an MKV. I'm lazy
Hmm. I
because
mean,
it's that
again,
one extra
OBS is
step.
yeah, OBS is complicated anyway. It takes you so long to figure out all these little things.
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
I
I'm
still don't know everything. I'm still learning. So
there's always tutorials for everything, but there's always that like weird gray area where you don't even know what to like look up.
hmm yeah,
you're
there's
you're
so
you're like,
much.
okay, I know that things could be better, but I don't know how. So you could watch like a general tutorial, but they're just going to give you general tips. It's very
Yeah.
unlikely that you're going to find like the exact thing that you need. It's the same for video editing. I'm realizing that there's literally tutorials on anything you can think of, but you need to know the right keywords, and you
hmm
need to be willing to search through like a bunch of videos that are like tangentially related and don't like exactly relate to the thing that you're looking for. So it's kind of a pain, but like it is out there. The information is out there.
Yeah. And when I went to community college, I took some Adobe software classes, and one of them was like
Mm.
Photoshop. And
Oh,
there's
that's
like
huge.
Animate, and I don't think I ever did Premiere though, so that's
Yeah.
been a learning experience. But even now, like I've forgotten everything I've learned, and all I do is like do one simple Google search. It's like, oh, that's how, and
Yeah.
it's that just that easy. It's like all the information is just right there, accessible. Like yeah, it's hard to find what you need to find, and I think the
Yeah.
class did help with that a little bit. But you don't need a class to know that. Just do a simple Google search, and you're off. Like it's not
That
that
is
bad.
another thing that, again, is a huge plus for going into trying to do content. Is like there's very little gatekeeping you. Like you don't
Hmm.
need a degree. You don't need
Yeah, anyone
like
with an internet,
like
I guess.
yeah, anyone with like a machine that can render videos
Hmm.
and like information at their and with an internet connection can like get into it. Um, even then, like there's so many things you could do to just get started.
Hmm.
It's a very very like it's one of the things that I like so much about it is that it's so many people can get into it and so many people can like express their
Creative
whatever
vision.
yeah, their creative experience, like whatever it is that like makes them unique, like that is something that is super available
Hmm.
to almost anybody, and I think that's great.
Yeah. I mean, it gives people like an option, even if it's not a lot of monetary. Some
Hmm.
people like it, it's their job. So it gives them an option for people that maybe, I don't know, couldn't work a normal job. Like maybe you have some sort of disability that makes it hard. Well, here's
Yeah.
a way where you can easily make money. It's great.
Yeah, I think it's like one of the I'm always so happy, even with all the
Hmm.
stress that comes with it. I'm like, oh,
Hmm.
okay, I'm
Yeah.
not making like a ton of money. I'm not rich, but I'm also not like I'm
Suffering.
struggling about the same as I would at like a normal job.
Hmm.
So might as well. But like the stresses are way different. I don't have to deal with like we said, management and all that other stressful, anxiety-inducing stuff, and
Hmm.
uh, the stresses are mostly down to like, dang it, my video didn't get as many views as I would have wanted. Oh well,
Oh well, I'll just make
time.
another one.
Yeah, just make another one. Yeah, like like one of my favorite videos. It was my favorite video until my most recent one that I uploaded. What got like significantly less viewership, but that was because it was covering like a different game. I was covering Breath of the Wild
Hmm.
in to try and like hype up going into the Tears of the Kingdom release because I wanted to try that as like what would happen if I tried to make content that's like relevant to like new video game releases. It didn't do as well, which is fine.
Hmm.
And I was really disappointed, but it's like, okay, well, on to the next like idea, on to the next
Hmm.
video.
And the other
And that
important thing.
video,
Oh,
oh,
sorry.
I was gonna say the video, even though it didn't do well, I still learned like so much,
Hmm.
and it helped me kind of realize the creative like voice and the creative like style that I want to go for in a lot of my videos going forward. which is just like I think there's a huge market for collaboration and collaborative content, especially when it comes to speedrunning explained videos.
Mhm.
Where even just recently, it wasn't until very recently did Summoning Salt start doing like interviews
Mhm.
in his videos. It's like getting the people that actually do the runs involved in the video and like hearing their voice and like having that expertise in the video as well. It's like something that I find like was lacking and still is lacking from a lot of like video essays.
Mhm. Yeah,
Not to say
that's
that
been
every
my
video needs that, but it's
Mhm.
like it's an idea that I think is underexplored.
Yeah, that single like addition to the videos has been like my favorite thing. Oh, wait, my internet went out again. Please hold. Although this time I'll blame the storm outside because surely that's the problem. Badoo, yep. Oh yeah, OBS doesn't capture desktop anymore, so you can't hear when my OBS disconnects. That's nice. Please hold. Alright, you're gonna make me do this manually, aren't you? That's fine. Please reconnect. Can't connect. That's some bullshit. Try again. Content. What do you mean can't connect? Oh, maybe my internet really did actually die due to the storm. Maybe I'm not even memeing. Maybe this is just real life. Uh-oh. Holy shit, did that come through the microphone? Uh... Oh. Um, I think the storm actually is, like, destroying my internet now.
Oh dang.
Yeah. Um, well, it says I'm back, but I'm on the... So I have a 2G and a 5G connection, and I switched to the 2G, so it's usually very
Mm,
unreliable, so... I guess
okay.
we'll just see what happens, but... Yeah, I mean, I just heard lightning, like, very nearby, so... I'm in the danger zone. Yeah, my internet is struggling
Oh
hardcore right
man,
now.
unfortunate. Bad.
Yeah,
It's just bad RNG, bro.
bad
Nothing you can
RNG.
do about it.
Nothing you can do, bad RNG. Yeah, definitely. Um, damn. Anyway, what was I saying?
Yeah, I was just finished talking about how I learned a lot from a video that like quote unquote flopped from my
Mm-hmm.
perspective, and
Yeah.
like it's one of those things where if you have the right mindset, even things that would be considered like a failure are actually still like positive. You can spin it in a positive way where it's like, oh, I learned a lot about um like I got really inspired to work on this style of video of being more collaborative and getting other people's voices involved in video topics. And I'm like, wow, that's really cool. I want to keep doing that.
Yeah. All right. And I remember what I was saying. I was saying that the interviews that Salt started doing is like my single like favorite edition that he's ever made.
Hmm.
Like I find that really engaging. Like part of the reason I do this is I like oh sorry, my lights are flickering. I'm getting
Oh yeah.
scared. Oh my god. This storm might actually just ruin everything. Very sad.
Dang.
All right, where was I? Quit distracting
The
me, Storm.
interviews.
Yeah, so I said, yeah, those are the single grade edition. Part of the reason I've been doing this is I like getting information from the source of certain things. So it's I find that kind of like information more engaging that way. And
Oh yeah.
then
I think it helps with the storytelling a lot as well
mhm,
when you get it like when you hear about a run from the actual person who did the run in a video that's talking about world record histories. I feel like that goes a long way for the narrative. I think it's one of the reasons Summoning Salt is like, you know, at the peak of speedrunning content. It's like he understands that the narrative of the actual content itself is like the most important part.
oh yeah. Yeah, that's definitely part of it. I mean, that's why I got so engaged with it because I wouldn't
Yeah.
have known what this is if it wasn't for like seeing a video for the first time 6 years ago and being like, "Oh yeah, this is really cool. I love the storyline of this. Let me
Yeah.
research more into it.
It's one of
Um,
those reasons why speedrunning explained is like such a, obviously it was a niche idea when Summoning Salt kind of like did it at first, but now it's like a very common thing that a lot of content creators, when they're trying out speedrunning content creation, they're like, well, I can just do another speedrun explained, but for the game that I'm very knowledgeable in or
mhm.
whatever, So and it does well. Like one of the most like I don't know if you've seen the Hobbit speedrunning explained or Hobbit speedrun
I
world
have
record
not,
progression
but
video.
I've
Uh,
heard of
it
it a lot.
it is like a game that I had never played, never knew existed, and had no like attachment to. But it's like a 2.5 hour like insane. The storylines in there are like really. It's a very 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 good video. It's obviously super engaging. To watch, I watched an entire 2.5 hour video like in one sitting.
Hmm.
Just like enthralled the whole time about a video game that I knew nothing about, but then got fully entrenched in the ideas and like the storylines there. So it just goes to show that that is like a tried and true type of like making content, and it really just comes down to like you can make any video game or any video idea interesting so
Hmm.
long as the storyline is there.
Yep, definitely. And then circling back, there was something I wanted to say about like trying out something new and it not maybe doing as well. What's
Mm-hmm.
good about like just moving on to the next content is uh like you're building up a backlog and those always have a chance to like come back if you
That
like
is the
have enough
nice thing.
content, and that's always great too.
Yeah, especially on YouTube, where like a Twitch stream, you could have the best Twitch stream of your life to
And it's
like
gone in
10
2
viewers,
weeks. Yeah.
and then but it's just gone. Like
Hmm.
nobody watches Twitch VODs. It's not
No.
there's not like a culture of people going back and watching Twitch VODs. Even like the largest Twitch streamers on the platform, like their Twitch VODs probably get like maybe a thousand views, maybe
Hmm.
something like that. Although the viewership for Twitch VODs is now like inflated because like they now started adding like the live views to the actual VODs themselves.
Yeah,
But
and it's all bullshit.
yeah, I mean, view inflation has always been a thing.
Yeah.
Facebook was the best at it because they just lied, which
Hmm.
was great, and they got a lot of investors very mad about that, and that's why Facebook gaming is not really a thing anymore.
Yeah. Oh well.
I mean, get wrecked.
Oh no. Anyway. But yeah. Yeah, it's nice to always have just all this content in the back, and because I have like random speedruns that just come back into circulation sometimes. I'm like,
Yep,
oh, why is that popping off? Why is this like random ROM hack speedrun with no mic or camera doing well? I
that
don't
is the
know.
nice thing about the algorithm. Sometimes the algorithm says, you know what, we're bringing this back. It's an oldie but a goodie. Let's throw it
It's
in
an
front of these
oldie but
people.
a goodie. Yeah. Yeah. YouTube's funny,
Yeah,
but
I mean, my most popular video for a long time was like not even Castlevania related. For like I just had a random video of me playing some indie game just pop off and get like 200,000 views for no
holy
reason.
shit. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like a 2 hour long like playthrough of like the first part of this game. The average watch time was 2 minutes because everybody wanted to click on the video to see what the game was, and then immediately they left.
Hmm.
But for whatever reason, the algorithm at the time was like fine with it and just kept promoting it over and over and over again. I think the reason why is because I was playing the PC version of the game, but the game like the same week got uploaded to like or not uploaded, but it got released on like PS4
Mm.
and like the PlayStation Store. And I
Okay.
think the PlayStation Store started advertising it a lot, so like people were looking up the game to see if they wanted to buy it.
Oh, okay. Well, that works out. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
sometimes you just I had no idea. I just got super lucky.
yeah. That's that's the other thing though. There's so much luck involved in the whole content thing.
Oh, for sure.
So
That's why I'm a big fan of making as many things as possible as quickly as possible,
Mhm.
because every single video has a chance to, you're just increasing your odds at that point. It's the best way to, if you're playing the lottery and you only buy, not to, don't play the lottery, first of all, but hypothetically speaking, if you were to play the lottery, it's better to play with more tickets than less. And each video is, in this allegory, like a lottery ticket.
Yeah.
It's still luck involved, but you have better odds.
Yeah. Keep gambling, you will win. So I think that's how YouTube works. When like in actuality, the whole gambling thing is don't you won't, but YouTube, yes, you will maybe. Yeah, it's free. Free
Yeah,
lottery.
that's again, the barrier to entry is so low, and at the end of the day, like you are still like gaining skills, I would say, that are useful going into the current content internet world that we live in. Like, not to say that I ever would get a job doing like some sort of social media management, but it's like I do have like the skills to do that. From like getting interested in this like career path and like working towards it, I understand a lot more. I've done research about these things more now because of that. So so at the very least, I have some additional skills. So it's not like it's going to waste either.
Yeah, it's definitely a learning experience, no matter how invested you get into it. So,
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I think it's if you have the means and the willpower to do it, then do it, you know, and just have fun with it. And I think a lot of people also get very discouraged because the luck factor is a really, really, really big deal. But one of the things that helped me out a lot, it was one, I had like very little expectations going into it. I still had like my normal job and I was doing everything on the side before doing it full time. Granted, I did it full time in a pretty irresponsible way, but that I had like I think like 60 live viewers and like I wasn't even partnered and my YouTube wasn't even doing that well, all things considered. But I had some money saved up and I said, screw it. I want to quit so bad. So I just quit and said, if I run out of money, I'll just get a different job. And I just haven't ran out of money since. So I got very lucky in that regard that my stuff was the trajectory was going upwards at the same time that I was able to put more time into it. But yeah, if your expectations are low enough, and it's also very hard, like it's very important to know that like everybody struggles. Like very very rarely do like even large creators their start usually was them uploading to like for a long period of time to like nobody, and nobody really cared about their stuff until eventually either one or a couple of things helped blow them up, and then they rode that momentum to wherever they are now.
Yeah, it's fun to just learn about everything. Like I hear from so many different people how it works, and so many stories are either the same about this thing, different about this thing. How no one's quite sure how it works, but trying to figure it out in
Everybody's
their
trying
own
their
thing.
best.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's what's important, I guess.
exactly. Yeah.
Um. Anyway, that was a lot of talk about content creation. I'll try to find another topic and spend
Yeah,
2 hours.
I can talk about it literally forever. It's 90% of what I think about in my waking day, so I could literally talk about it forever. But I'm
That's
down to talk
fair.
about whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is a speedrun show, so we haven't talked much about the whole Symphony of the Night speedrunning stuff.
Oh, that old thing.
Well, I feel like it's important a little bit, maybe. Yeah, I mean,
No, of course, I'm down to talk about it. I mean, that is the other thing. Those are the two things that I'm passionate about.
yeah, okay, so we've talked about the first one down to death. Now to talk about the second one
Yeah.
down to death. So
Yeah, no, Soten's great. It's a game that I love. It's my favorite video game of all time. I played it a lot growing up as a kid, not really understanding much about it, just like liking the artwork and liking the music and digging the overall vibe. And then I grew up and I'm like, wait, no, that was like actually a good game. Like, do you ever have those games from your childhood that you look back on and you're like, oh, I remember having a lot of fun with it, and then you play it as an adult and you're like, oh, that game is bad. What?
yeah, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up with a bunch of different, like the PlayStation was the console that remember the most fondly, the PlayStation One, and like having a bunch of games for that. And I've gone back through the catalog of PlayStation One games that I grew up with, and most of them are like fun bad. Some of them are just bad. But Symphony of the Night is one of the few like games that stand the test of time. Like I played a lot of that growing up. I played a lot of like the Crash Bandicoot games, the Spyro games. Trying to think of there any other like games like my brothers were really into Final Fantasy, the Final Fantasy games, stuff like that. So like those are games I have nostalgia for. But Symphony of the Night, just the game is just so good, especially the speedrun. The speedrun is in my mind like one of the best, and also like it's weird. It's not like it's an underrated speedrun because a lot of people know about it and a lot of people respect it. But also I feel like a lot of people don't realize like why it's so good.
I mean, I don't know. I haven't had PlayStation until this year. I got my first console.
Yeah, you were telling me about that.
Yeah. And I still haven't really played it because I don't have the stuff to like play things, you know. at least in modern era, I
Yeah.
guess. And so I know nothing about any like PlayStation games. That includes Symphony of the Night. Like I know nothing about that game. The only
Um,
Castlevanias I really know about are the NES ones. So,
yeah, and Symphony of the Night obviously is like insanely different. They
mm-hmm.
completely redid like the whole formula, and it created its own like genre. Obviously, Super Metroid was like kind of more impact, or like first when it came to like the Metroidvania genre.
Mm-hmm.
But Symphony of the Night really solidified it as like, oh, this is a thing you could be doing. And it's funny because Symphony of the Night, if you talk about, there's like a bunch of interviews with the director of the game where Symphony of the Night's open like level structure and like upgrades and stuff like that were much more inspired by like A Link to the Past than Super Metroid actually.
Hmm.
They cite A Link to the Past being the inspiration behind like having a interconnected world and like finding items that like help you upgrade your character and explore more places.
Okay.
So it had very little to do with Super Metroid, but they share a lot of similarities.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm always a big fan of telling people if they haven't played it to definitely like try a casual playthrough of the game because it's a very unique casual experience. Even like modern Metroidvanias or other Castlevania games that have a similar style don't exactly fit like the way that Symphony of the Night does because it was their first attempt at it. There's a lot of like uniqueness to it. There wasn't a lot of convention going into it. They didn't have like a rubric of things that needed to get done in the game. So there's a lot of unique and weirdness that I find very charming personally.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely like always recommend like yeah if you haven't played the game definitely play it casually, especially because there are people that are like they'll try and do the speed run before playing the game casually, and I can understand that for some games, but I always recommend for Symphony of the Night to play it casually first. But the speed run is also very different from casual play by a lot. There are some games where the speed run and casual play kind of overlap, but one is just like much faster than the other.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine like this might not be 100% accurate, but in my mind, I imagine like Mario Bros. 1, for example. It's like there's not like a ton different between casual play and like maybe not world record level speedrunning, but like entry level speedrunning.
Mm-hmm.
It's just you're doing the things that you know how to do, but faster.
Yeah.
Where Symphony of the Night goes completely off the rails with like the level of like glitch knowledge and like it's a lot like Ocarina of Time, where like speedrunning Ocarina of Time and playing Ocarina of Time casually are like completely divergent. Like
Mm-hmm.
they are as far apart as you can imagine. Symphony of the Night is very similar, where what the game expects from you casually is very different from like what speedrunners have developed, especially because the game's so old and there's like so many layers to unpack for speedrunning the game. The speedrun that is the most popular and is the most beginner friendly is actually the any percent, specifically it's any percent no save corruption, because shout out Stockfolder. Stockfolder back in like 2013 found save corruption, which led to arbitrary code execution, which is a category that only 2 people to my knowledge have ever done speedruns for, the arbitrary code execution route. And they're both not the most mentally stable people, so there's a trend there. I'm scared that if I do an ace speedrun that I'm gonna like get sent to the loony bin or something.
Oh. Hmm.
Uh,
Man, has Sockfolder
anyways,
found everything in every game?
he might have, honestly, but Stockfolder broke open Symphony of the Night right before I started speedrunning the game.
Mm.
This is actually like a story that I want to try and like make a video about at some point, because like the era of pre-Stockfolder Symphony of the Night speedrunning and post-Stockfolder Symphony of the Night speedrunning are like day and night. Before Stockfolder found a lot of because he didn't just find arbitrary code execution, he found like one of the most impactful glitches in the game that like to this day is like it's completely integral to like 99% of the speedrun categories outside of like glitch lists.
Mm.
So it's called reverse shift line. Not to get too caught up in the details, but essentially it is a glitch where if you're at the edge of a screen transition, imagine you walk through this screen transition, you go to the other side of the screen.
Mm-hmm.
It's a screen based game, so you go to the edge of the screen and then it loads a new room on the other side. The glitch essentially allows you to, once you go through the screen transition, if you do the correct set of inputs, it sends you past that screen into the next screen over, which in a game that has like a castle layout the way that Symphony of the Night does, you can use that for all sorts of things, going out of bounds, skipping past certain like barriers, and it's something that you can do in a lot of places, but you can't do it everywhere. It's only in places where the camera actually like follows you. So the room has to be large enough. If the room is only one screen wide, you can't do it because you can't scroll the camera.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a way of manipulating the camera to like change where you get sent after a screen transition. It's essentially like not really a wrong warp, but it's like an underflow glitch of your X position.
Mm.
It's really, really interesting. It's a very cool glitch, very interesting, and it completely revolutionized Symphony of the Night speedrunning. But before that was known, the nice thing about that glitch is not only is it really powerful, it's also very consistent. It's amazing that nobody really found out how to do it before Sockfolder did. But it makes sense because Sockfolder was actually looking through the game's data in a way that nobody else was and found that the exposition got underflowed in a way that was like, huh, wait a minute. I wonder if you could take advantage of that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Where like somebody else messing around might have underflowed their exposition in the game's like memory, but like if you're not using like a RAM watch, you're not going to notice that.
Yeah.
And if you don't do the correct setups, also the glitch like doesn't work. So like again, Sockfolder, the setup god, helped make a lot of setups possible for the speedrunning purposes, but the general glitch itself is also insanely powerful. And it changed. We have I could actually pull up some numbers because I think it's interesting. I can go to Soten speedrun world record progression. We have like a written world record progression that I can reference real quick. Let's see. We have the difference between the world record before and after Sockfolder, immediately there was like a short period of time with like a small bit of time save, but within what is this, like 3 months, the record got lowered by like an entire minute in a category that's only like at the time 17 minutes long, which is pretty crazy. Like that route alone was like insane. But before that glitch got discovered, all of the tricks were like, I joke around and call them ROM Scout only tricks. Like they're not tasked only, but they're ROM Scout only because he was the only person who was skilled enough at the game to be able to perform some of these tricks consistently because there was no setups for a lot of this stuff. Some of this stuff is like sub-pixel level precise, like multiple frame perfect inputs for some of these glitches. And nobody was persistent enough and skilled enough to do runs over and over, like reset over and over and over again to these like insanely precise tricks. I think at one point ROM Scout, before he retired, his like reset count was like in the like 20,000 or something like that. So like dude did a lot of attempts and was willing to like, you know, press forward in ways that I don't think anybody else ever would have done. Because I couldn't have done that. Like there are still tricks that he has done in like that consistently.
Yeah, my internet's struggling again. Let me reset something. If you can hear me. Oh.
Yeah, no worry.
Maybe the 5G works again. Yeah, I know OBS disconnected. Oh, yo, 5G works again. Maybe. Maybe not. Says it does. Oh, no, it doesn't work again. Pod. Okay.
Oh.
Yep.
We're good.
Well, the stream's not back live yet, but Discord is.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, just
internet. Just keep going.
Internet. Yeah, you can.
Okay. But yeah, as I was saying, the Symphony of the Night world record before, like, from, I have the actual dates in front of me, from 2010, what is that, May of 2010 until February of 2015, Rom Scout had every single world record, and he had how many? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 world record improvements. And those are only the ones that are documented. It's possible that there's, I know for a fact there's a couple missing because he got multiple world records at GDQ practice rooms that never got recorded, which is, classic.
Yep.
So like and when he started back in 2010, the world record was a 34-minute time. And then before he let go of the record, he got it down to 17 minutes. So he cut out, what is that? Nearly 20 minutes of time, like 15 minutes of time off of his PB. And like the first person to beat Rom Scout's time was myself way back in 2015 by 1 second. And then he immediately, like not immediately, but pretty soon afterwards would get the world record back like a few months later. And this is while he started working at Twitch, so he just wasn't nearly as active. And he just eventually kind of like, went to go do his like real world life job thing. And then I pretty much, a couple of people here and there took world records back and forth, but like the worlds of like when Rom Scout was dominating and then afterwards are so insanely different. And a big part of that is actually due to Sockfolder finding reverse shift line, and he also found a setup for a trick known as Richter skip. There is a enemy or like an encounter in the game that requires a lot of like time to get past. You have to find a bunch of items to get past it normally. But in order to do it in the speedrun as fast as possible, the only known way to skip Richter in a fast way required like a sub-pixel perfect, like 3 triple frame perfect trick to like clip into this like floor to get past the encounter. And then Sockfolder finds a setup that's like only like 2 or 3 seconds slower, but it's like not pixel perfect there's a setup to get into a pixel perfect position that's very easy to do, and it turns into just a 1-frame trick. So it's like instead of it being triple frame perfect and sub pixel perfect, it's now just like, oh, you can just, as long as you hit this 1 frame on this thing that you can set up very easily over and over again. Like, so if you fail it the first time, you can just go for it again. And it's just a little bit of time loss. That changed the barrier to entry like so much. Like I would not have been able to speedrun the game if it wasn't for Sockfolder's discoveries, because the difficulty of just finishing a run, let alone like getting a top time, required learning a triple frame perfect like floor clip. So like, and that's like just to get started with like, because the alternative route was like tens of minutes slower. So it was like you weren't even running the same category at that point if you weren't doing this one trick. But finding alternative to this trick that turned in from it being like insanely precise to like, okay, it's a 1-frame trick, but you can set it up multiple times. So even if you don't get it first try, it's not like you're sitting there banging your head into the wall trying to do a triple frame perfect trick with like, as a beginner. Like that was actually my first stream ever. It was the day that the skips were being discovered. I wasn't aware of it. I started my Symphony of the Night stream, and one of the other runners that wasn't Rom Scout, one of the other people, his name's Turbo Dog, was in my chat and is like, "Oh, you don't need to do this anymore. Like this literally just got found." I was trying to do the triple frame perfect trick because I saw Rom Scout do it a bunch on his stream, and I'm like, okay, I kind of understand how to do it. Let me see if I can figure it out. I sat there for like 3 hours, never got it once. And then Turbo Dog shows up in my stream and is like, yeah, you don't need to do this anymore. There's a new skip. And I'm like, oh, snap, that's sick. And then from there, I was able to actually learn the whole run. Turbo Dog did a lot actually to like teach me the run because there wasn't any active tutorials. He was in the process of making a tutorial, so he ended up just giving me a lot of the knowledge from the tutorial he was in the process of making. I learned the route and I just got hooked on the speedrun. It's a very, very cool speedrun. It has a movement technique that in my mind has like kind of ruined speedrunning other games for me because I love the movement technique's called wing smashing. So you get this ability partway through the game to transform into a bat, and there's a spell where if you do a certain set of inputs will make you fully invincible. You fly across the screen super fast, and you can kind of control the height as you do it as well. but it's very skill intensive. The input is you have to like hold jump, then you press up, back, down, down, forward, then release the jump button. So it's like a 3/4 circle motion.
Hmm.
That activates the spell, and then it goes for about 60 frames, so about a full second, and then it'll forcibly untransform you from the bat, which is really slow, unless you do the input again. So you have to constantly be doing this input over and over again, about once every second. There are ways that you can drop the input. Like if you're going through a screen transition, your inputs will like be frozen during the screen transition. The game doesn't read your inputs. So if you're in the middle of an input and you go through the screen transition and you do part of the input during the screen transition, the game doesn't register it. So it's easy for that to drop. So you have to be aware of like spacing out your wing smashes during to coincide with like screen transitions. You also have to be aware of the fact that you have full control of your height as well. Like you're constantly moving forward, like at a like you don't have to press anything and the bat will just move forward very fast. But if you press up or if you press down, you can actually like control the height of the bat to move up and forward or down and forward. So you can control your height by holding up, but then also you only have 60 frames before you have to do the input again. So you have to control your height, control the inputs, control the screen transitions and all of this, which for me, that's where the skill expression of the game is at its best, where you have these rooms that are really awkward. They're designed for like casual exploration or whatever, but you have this like really overpowered tool that takes a lot of skill to practice and master. But if you have the skills of like wing smashing, you can get through rooms like insanely fast. And it makes the video game like so much more expressive and fun to maneuver through. And there's even more movement options on top of that for like other categories, but just the any percent category is like it's a distilled speed run that is essentially like it doesn't help that the bat is also like really overpowered for other glitches. But you basically do everything that you can at the beginning part of the game. You get the bat soul, the bat relic to transform into the bat, and then you basically just fly and rush to the end of the game as fast as possible, doing a few glitches and skips along the way. And most of them are just from like you just moving super duper fast, which for me is like super fun. And I think for a casual like viewing experience is one of the reasons why the game I think does well at like marathons, because it looks so insanely different from casual play.
Mm-hmm. All right. So do you have to use like the D-pad on a PlayStation, or does it have analog support?
So no, the game yes and no. It depends on what version of the game you're playing. Because this is another thing that's fun about Symphony of the Night is there's like a billion different versions.
Oh, great.
The speed run, if you want to speed run optimally, you need to play on the Xbox 360 arcade port of the game, because when they re-released that version of the game, it's we're still finding out stuff about that version of the game right now. Like it's partially emulated, but it's also partially like not emulated. It's weird. But that port was uses the actual additional like hardware buff that the 360 provides to make the load times insanely short, and there's like zero slowdown from like particle effects and stuff like that. Because on the original PlayStation version, like there's a ton of lag that comes from like particle effects on the screen, or just in general like doing too many things or too many enemies on the screen at once does cause slowdown. And like the screen transitions are like half a second slower, and like every single like room that you have to load, because the game is divided into these like little areas, and they have these transition rooms to like help the CD of the game actually load the next area.
Yeah.
Those loading areas take like 10 seconds to load, where on the Xbox version it's like 1 second. So it's a very very fast version of the game load time wise, and it's kind of become the standard that way. But the actual route and execution is pretty much identical to the PlayStation version. It's just the PlayStation version is like just has slower load times. So if you're good on the PlayStation version, you will also be good on the Xbox version, and vice versa, because the skills are essentially the same and like the inputs are pretty much the same. The only difference is the 360 version did add analog support, but the PlayStation version of the game came out before the PlayStation analog controller was ever even a thing. So it never got analog support in the original version. So that is a little bit awkward to do those like, you know, half or 3/4 circle motions on D-pad. It's not that bad, but it is a little bit less fun compared to on 360, where you just have an analog stick where you're doing the motion inputs.
Okay. Well, that answers that. I find it funny how long the like analog support came out for that console, so many games just don't support that.
Yeah, yeah, it's very strange. I I don't know the exact story why, but it has something to do with the fact that obviously the N64 comes out. The N64 came out like a few months, almost a whole year after the PlayStation 1 came out, right? Am I remembering that correctly?
Uh,
And
Not sure.
I'm gonna double check but I'm 90% sure that's correct.
Okay.
N64 release date was June 23rd, 1996. Yeah, the PlayStation was already out, I'm pretty sure. PlayStation release date. Yeah, September 9th, 1995. So the PlayStation had been out for a few months, and then obviously the N64 drops, and it has an analog controller with analog stick, and then Sony's like, oh snap, we need that, and ours is going to be better, and we're going to put two of them on it.
Yep.
Even though most games never even use the second analog stick. It's so silly. Like, I can't even think of any games that use the second analog stick other than like Ape Escape. That's like the only game that comes to mind that actually used the second analog stick. But yeah, and Symphony of the Night was one of the games that came out pretty early in the lifespan of the console, and so it just never had analog support.
Yeah, so games that just, because you think the analog stick could just mimic the D-pad.
Yeah, they never like thought about that. Like that would have to be done on like the console level, I think.
Yeah,
Like the console would have to because the console was designed without like analog in mind, so they had to like modify. I don't know, or maybe each game would have to handle it differently. I don't know how you would like handle that as like Sony. So it makes sense why there's no like universal analog just mimic D-pad or whatever.
Yeah, I guess so, but it's just funny to think about how that. Like, again, I don't know much about PlayStation. I've always either had Nintendo and then I just had Xbox during high school because my friends did. So
Yeah.
PlayStation is just like untouched territory for me. So it's nice to learn about it.
It's a really really cool unique console. One of my favorite things about GDQ is going through just like random PlayStation games that like the PlayStation speedrunning community like digs up randomly. I'm a big fan of that. I recently got the X Station, which has like flash memory for PlayStation games, so it's much easier for me to acquire all sorts of different games. And just going through like the library of games that the PlayStation has is like insane.
Yep,
There's all sorts of crazy stuff on there.
I remember. Like Egg.
Yeah,
Egg's
dude,
fun.
Egg was crazy. Yeah,
Egg
we ended up
was.
trying out Cyber Egg too.
Mm,
Yeah,
I'm
Cyber
sure
Egg
it
was
was
fun.
not at all the same.
No, very different game. But yeah. Um, yeah, the Japanese multiplayer games, we found a repository of like all of the games that have ever been like officially released. At least it's a close enough complete repository that it's the most complete one that I've ever found over the years of searching. And like just Japanese multiplayer games alone is like over 4,000. So it's like there's an insane number of games where like the N64 had like what, a couple hundred
300
total.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's just so many like games and like hidden gems that exist on the PlayStation. It's like an infinite well of games where like you can kind of go through like the N64 library that like there's 300 something games, but like how many of them are even worth experiencing? Like
I don't know.
not that many,
There
right?
can't be a lot.
Yeah. Not every game's going to be Wetrix, you know?
Oh, Wetrix. Hell yeah. Man.
But yeah, I mean, I grew up with a PlayStation, so I'm very fond of it. Symphony of the Night is weird though that like the optimal platform isn't even on its original console anymore. So that kind of has it really is its own like separate community where I feel like other like either consoles or like generations of games like a series like the Spyro.
Uh-oh. Here we go again. Come on. Maybe it'll oh, wow, it actually did without me having to do anything.
It
Hooray.
reconnected.
Yeah.
Nice.
Uh,
Um,
fun times. Anyway.
yeah. As I was saying, the Symphony of the Night is in a weird place, like speedrun culture wise, where I feel like there's at least a decent amount of crossover with other games of the same series or other games on the same console. But
Mhm.
like for example, there are people that like speedrun like every Nintendo game.
Mhm.
And I think that has a lot to do with like the Nintendo, because the Nintendo 64 and like other Nintendo consoles have far less like third party support and it's mostly like first party support. Um, so a lot of Nintendo users have shared experiences with the games that they grew up with. Like there's a larger chance that there's overlap. Like if you had an N64, like you probably had Pokemon Stadium or Mario 64 or Mario Kart 64 or like
Mhm.
one of these games you probably had. So it's like the crossover demographic of other games is more likely to be there. Where PlayStation, there's just thousands and thousands and thousands of games. So somebody who was a PlayStation user might not have never even like picked up Castlevania Symphony of the Night. They might have been too busy playing like the 10 million JRPGs that existed on the console.
Mhm.
Um, so I feel like that the fact that the game series like was on PlayStation and then immediately switched to Nintendo consoles afterwards, and specifically the Nintendo handhelds, for this genre of Castlevania game, like the open world Metroidvania style.
Mhm.
Um, I feel like it really split up like the crossover potential for the speedrunning communities. There's not a lot of like solidarity amongst like the like PlayStation speedrunning community. It's not like there's big certain representation. And also, most people when they speedrun Symphony of the Night, they're not speedrunning on the original console. They're
Mhm.
either playing on Xbox or they're just emulating the PlayStation version. Like those are the two most popular options. There's very, 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 very few people that run on original hardware.
Mhm.
In fact, on the leaderboard, I can't even. There might even be like maybe one or two out of like the couple hundred runs.
Wow.
Um, it's incredibly rare. I don't know why that is. I think it's just the emulator is more accessible, and the Xbox 360 is a more, at least 10 years ago, it was a more modern console, and it was easier to get
Mhm.
your hand. I mean, you can get a 360 nowadays for like $50, yeah, if you wanted to. So it's
Mhm.
still not that expensive. Um, honestly, buying a 360 might be cheaper than buying a PlayStation 1. Actually, now that I think about it. Um,
Well, I have a 360. Let's see. The PlayStation one I just bought was like $80.
mhm.
And that was with 4 games, a controller, and all the hookups. So it
Okay,
actually
that's
wasn't
actually
that.
not that bad.
But maybe I just got a really lucky deal at the local shop.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Yeah. No, that $80 for all of that could be correct. I haven't had to buy a PlayStation in a while.
Hmm.
I got very lucky to get gifted the X Station that I'm using.
Hmm. Yeah, I still need to get the PSIO or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely having flash memory support for just gaming in general, especially retro gaming, is just so huge.
Hmm. I have an
With like,
EverDrive for every console, every Nintendo console
yeah,
I have.
yeah, I've been looking into getting an EverDrive for
Oh, come on, internet. You're better than this. No, it's not. Why is it so bad? It makes me sad. I restarted it like yesterday too. You'd think it'd work, but I guess not. Might be back.
okay, I can hear you.
Great.
Yeah, sorry about the internet problems.
Oh yeah, it makes me depressed every time, but I should be used to it. Anyway,
Yeah.
whatever drive were you
Uh,
talking about
Talking
getting?
about the N64 EverDrive. I want to get my hands on one
Yeah.
of those eventually. Isn't the person that makes them, are they like, weren't they like based out of the Ukraine? So there was a
Yeah,
lot of issues.
Crix. Yeah.
Yeah. I, that's all I remember hearing like maybe a year or two ago. So I haven't looked into trying to get another one.
Yeah, I
But I
buy
didn't
mine from Stone Age Gamer, which is like an American kind of.
like repo
Yeah, but
whatever.
they
Yeah.
have like custom shells and stuff, so
Okay.
mine has like this nice blue that matches my blue console. It's really
Okay.
nice.
Cool.
So I'd recommend them because they have like that's like their main distributor in the US, I think. and they have like
Oh,
a
okay.
bunch of custom shells for everything. They look really nice.
Yeah. You have
Yo.
the X7, right?
I
Or is it the X5? One of those two? Because one of them like has like the where you have to like reset the console in order to save or something like that.
yeah.
There's some jankiness.
All I know is that I got it a while ago, so it might be even older, but it was when it was still
Mm.
called Ultra EverDrive and not EverDrive 64 or whatever they call it
Uh,
now.
yeah.
Yeah, like you
Because
can
that
look up what Ultra EverDrive means. I just don't know off the top of my head.
Gotcha. Yeah. Either way, because I recently got an N64 and I'm like, oh boy, I can't wait to play some games. And it's like I have like Kirby 64, which is a good game, but it's
Mm-hmm.
like, is that the only game I want to play? I don't know.
Nah.
And do I want to go through the process of like collecting a bunch of like retro cartridges and then storing them properly and all that? Like
No.
even just space wise, it's like it takes up so much space.
I'm a super I don't care about video game collecting. Just give me the conveniency of an all-in-one person.
Yeah.
Like I'll sell all of my shit. I don't care. I just want to be able to play the games.
Yeah, and I will say, because I've had this conversation with some people, and they're like, oh, "Okay, then at that point, why not just emulate?" It's one N64 emulation is doo doo dog butt ass, and
Yes,
it's
it sucks.
bad,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to stay bad forever. It feels like, um,
Probably.
like even PlayStation emulation is like very very good in comparison, but it's still not perfect. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's a couple of things that like because I'm very used to playing Symphony of the Night on both emulator and towards playing for GDQ. I played a lot on the X Station, which is original hardware. It's just a emulating the disk drive. But as far as like the actual way that the game plays and response is like basically 100% accurate to original hardware.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are minor differences that I'm like, huh. That's weird. Like even things like screen resolution and like stuff like that is can like in a speedrunning scenario can throw you off. Like input delay is another one. Playing on emulation, like there's always input delay through emulation. It's just like how emulation works is that there's going to be layers of input delay.
Mm-hmm.
And like when you start on original console, and we talked about input delay earlier with like monitors and stuff like that, like at the very start of this. Dealing with input delay in a speedrunning context is just miserable.
Yeah. The argument I've always made, like, I don't like emulating. I like playing on original hardware. And I mean, EverDrives are original hardware. Like, the
hmm
original console is reading the data on here as the game. There's no difference. Like, I do my speedruns on an EverDrive, it works the
hmm
same ways. So that's my argument. Like, I don't want to emulate. Like, it's fun to play on the original hardware, and this is original hardware. Like, this
Yeah,
isn't an emulator. This is just a cartridge.
especially for N64, dude. Because
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh
Oh my
my
god.
god,
It's so
yeah.
bad.
Yeah, and I do want there is something to be said about the N64 controller that I personally think it is an affront to God and should have never been designed that way. However, it is it is what it is, and the length of the stick and the sensitivity that is provided from that is very very unique and is actually important to the enjoyment of a lot of games. Like
Mm-hmm.
Mario 64 on like any emulation or like re-release like the WiiWare or Wii re-release or whatever what is it called, the retro
VVC, like
yeah
virtual
virtual
console.
console,
Yeah.
that was the word, yeah.
Okay.
uh like playing on virtual console and like having the analog stick not read properly or the sensitivity be like wrong, it feels terrible, it feels like garbage, it feels like trash. I used to think Mario 64 was an overrated bad video game because I only ever played it on Wii VC. And
Mm-hmm.
then I finally like, through going to GDQs and stuff like that, people actually showed up with original hardware, and I got a chance to play it. And it's like, oh wait, no, this actually is like a lot more responsive and like
Mm-hmm.
feels a lot better. And it's like, wait, no, this I could see how this is like really really fun, especially speedrunning it. Um,
Yeah.
so that's one of the small cases where like the Mario speedrunning community, the Mario 64 speedrunning community, how they all kind of like cough elitism, cough play on original hardware. It's like, no, there's a reason for that. Like the reason is because like all
It
other
feels.
versions of the game might be faster but like aren't as good.
Yeah, they're not. And the thing I can think of off the top of my head is like with the stick being as big as it is here, to do a speed kick in the game, you have
hmm
to. It can't be neutral or straightforward to do one. It has to be like
Yeah, it
in
has
the
to be
middle.
ESS position or whatever.
Yeah, and it's so much easier to do it with this much space with the stick
hmm
than like more modern controllers that kind of just flick up immediately.
Yeah, exactly. Like getting to that middle ground is a lot harder. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, the N64 is an interesting console. It's one of those ones that I didn't grow up with, but I ended up getting later in life just from tangentially being like interested in speedrunning. Like I never had a Super Nintendo growing up, but I got a Super Nintendo and an EverDrive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because of like speedrunning, and I was
Yep.
like, okay, I want to play on original hardware because that's kind of like what speedrunners do. And again, there is a reason for that. Like the games just feel better, are more responsive, um, less input delay, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Especially games where like the frame tightness of certain things is like super duper important. One of the first games that I tried to like learn to speedrun other than Symphony of the Night was actually Yoshi's Island for Super Nintendo.
Mm.
And emulating that game feels terrible, not because the emulators are bad at emulating it, but because the input delay is like ever so slightly different. And like if you have to hit perfect flutters, which is like you have to release jump and then repress jump at a specific point in like Yoshi's animation to like flutter in the air at the perfect height and like get over certain gaps, or to actually gain height while doing so, is like really precise, and any amount of input delay just completely ruins your timing for it. So I like learned a specific way on console, and then like anytime I'm like, oh, I could just boot up on emulator just to like practice some stuff. It was like, no, I
Mm-mm.
cannot practice this way. It will ruin my muscle memory.
Yeah. It sucks that save states are so hard on the SNES for some reason.
Yeah, there are ways to do it with the correct hardware, but it's not
Yeah.
ideal.
No, not at all.
You have to have like your Super Nintendo like plugged into your
Mm-hmm.
computer through like a janky USB setup.
Yeah, I can't do that. So I've never figured out save states.
Yeah.
Um, I used to think the 64 controller was dog shit too, but
Hmm.
I don't know, something about holding it, at least for Mario 64. I do like what they did, like, oh, maybe 3D games don't work. Well, there's a 2D holding method.
Hmm.
Like, it makes sense in that regard. The thing that pisses me off, and I need to rant about it, is like putting a rumble pack in the back. Makes this thing so fucking uncomfortable. Like, it just
Yeah.
falls down this way. Like,
Yeah, that's
what is this, man?
Nintendo was really on something. I
Well,
mean,
I
but
don't know what
they
it was.
wanted to try and expand the gaming experience into the next dimension. They really
Well,
thought Rumble was. To be fair, Rumble did become standard because of them.
yeah,
Same with the analog stick. The analog stick became standard because of them.
true.
Granted, the way that the N64 handles its analog is very interesting.
It's
um,
unique.
yeah,
That's
you
the
get a
term I'll
little bit of
use.
a little bit of a plastic dust at the bottom of your controller, from
Mm-hmm.
the joints wearing and tearing.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's another to tie it back to Symphony of the Night speedrunning, and why I think 360 is so popular is because the game feels better with analog controls.
Mm-hmm.
And also the game is not more responsive because there is a tiny bit of extra input delay, but it's not that bad. It's like 1 frame. The game also has an internal like 2 frame input delay that's built into the game. Symphony
Mm.
of the Night, that is. So because there is that internal input delay, like you can only get so responsive. So adding an extra frame on the 360 version doesn't really matter that much. Um, and on top of that, having access to analog controls, and analog controls that are good, because emulation, if you try and map your analog stick to an emulator for PlayStation 1, it doesn't feel as like correct as like native analog like controls.
Mm-hmm.
That work much better on the 360 version of the game. So that's one of the reasons why I think the 360 version is so much more well adopted, is because having analog controls for a game that requires you to do like basically 360 motions is so much more. It feels a lot better to do, because I learned how to do it with D-pad for like for my GDQ run, and I was able to get probably like 85-90% as effective like movement wise for the GDQ run, which for me it was good enough, just for the showcase of the run. But like I will always play better on a 360 with a 360 controller,
Mm-hmm.
because the inputs are they just feel better with the analog support.
I also like where the sticks are on the 360 compared to the PlayStation. Like the left
Yeah,
one
I'm
just
not
being down there is weird.
yeah, the 360 controller is, in my opinion, it's one of my favorite controllers of all time. The
Mm-hmm.
Xbox 360 controller, I think the Xbox kind of went crazy with the design of like Xbox One and like the Series S and X. People will meme on it because the D-pad is weird, but also like the D-pad itself like can move around similar to an analog stick, and I think that was the idea of what they were going for, is that it was kind of its own like addition to the analog stick itself. Like it's not meant to be like a like separated D-pad the same way that the PlayStation did it. And if you try and use it like it's one, it doesn't work that well. But for Symphony of the Night in particular, this D-pad is really really good because there are certain times where you want the precision of a D-pad. However, you still want to have access to being able to slide the motions around in a circle, and this D-pad is really really good for that. So I can hold like down left down right for like precise diagonals because this controller isn't notched. Obviously, the 360 isn't doesn't have like notches for the diagonals. So hitting a diagonal on the D-pad, but then being able to immediately transfer into like a 360 motion afterwards using the D-pad feels really, really good. So for me, because I play Symphony of the Night so much and I use the 360 controller for it, for me, Symphony of the Night feels best on a 360 controller.
Yeah, I mean, Xbox pretty much perfected the controller at that point because nothing's changed. Here's a Series S, like literally the same fucking thing. I mean, even the Switch Pro controller is essentially the same, just without like the triggers.
Yeah, I have a friggin' Pro controller right here, and it's the same exact layout. It just has no analog triggers, and it has like extra face buttons.
Yeah, like it's so good. And PlayStation's don't PlayStation to this day have like the two sticks at the bottom? Like,
yep, I'm not a big fan of that layout.
No,
I think it's fine.
Yeah, I think it's fine, but I've always found it weird as someone who's used to Nintendo and Xbox.
Yeah, I think it's not ideal. I will say the PlayStation D-pads, if you're playing a 2D game, do feel a little bit better on average for like precise presses compared to like the mushiness of like a 360 or an Xbox pad. But not even to mention like the freaking Switch Pro controller. Jesus Christ, why that thing shouldn't have a D-pad? The D-pad is fucking dog shit. It's so bad. Oh man,
Yeah. It's not great. I don't know how people use the like GameCube D-pad. That thing is so small.
It's very small. One of my first speedrun games I ever played was I used to play Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland, the Game Boy Advance game, on Game Boy Player through the GameCube. So like your options were you could God, this is so stupid. So if you had a GameCube, a Game Boy Player, and a Game Boy Advanced link cable that connected specifically to the GameCube for like Pokemon Stadium, or not Pokemon Stadium, but Pokemon Coliseum and stuff like that. Those also worked as controllers for Game Boy games. So your options were either get a Game Boy Advanced to GameCube cable, plus a Game Boy Player, plus all this other stuff, and then turn your Game Boy Advanced on and just have no cartridge in it, and then it actually worked as a controller. And I did that for a little while. But my Game Boy Advance just ended up like crapping out on me after a while. So if I wanted to do speedruns, I had to like actually play on a GameCube controller. And Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland 2D platformer, using the analog stick wasn't ideal because in order to initiate a dash in Kirby, you have to double tap forward, and double tapping on analog stick is like not nearly as fast as double tapping on a D-pad. So I like learned how to use that D-pad, but I will agree, it's not great. It's very small and very not fun to use.
Yeah. Because the PlayStation controller has it where like the D-pad's like separate buttons, right?
Kind of. It still is a actual like pivot pad.
Oh, okay.
It's just that the actual plastic separates them into little individual things, because you can't like press left and right at the same time, like as if it's like separate buttons. Although, because that's kind of what the Switch controller is. It's like separate buttons that kind of are in the shape of a D-pad. The Joy-Cons.
Okay, so like it's the standard D-pad, but it's kind of hidden by the plastic.
Yeah,
instead of being
exactly.
Above. Okay, interesting.
Yeah,
I didn't actually know
it's
that.
an interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting design. Yeah, because like left plus right doesn't like.
Okay.
It doesn't. It's not allowed in Soten, and you would need to like break your controller like in order to like do it. You'd have to like snap the plastic to be able to press left and right at the same time. I think they did that on purpose. They made it like its own like pivot pad thing to prevent left plus right. The same way that like all of the other like ever since like the NES basically they were just copying the same design.
Yeah, I know that people break their SNES D-pads in like Super Mario Kart or something to do certain
Yeah, to
things.
snake faster or whatever.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always not been a fan of that. I don't like having to break your controller to do stuff.
No, that's one of the reasons why left plus right is banned
Hmm.
in
Yeah,
Symphony of the Night.
exactly.
There are speed run applications of using left plus right as well that would change some things. Like some momentum preservation could be faster with holding left plus right is like better than like holding neutral for certain things.
Hmm.
There's like a wrong warp that kind of got discovered if you press left plus right for some reason. I actually don't know much about it other than it's a funny story. I made a video a long time ago, not even that long ago, like 2 years ago, about a person who was making fake speedruns, basically TASes, and then claiming them as like done RTA without save states. And it was
Great.
like super clear that they weren't. But like this, and it's so stupid to me because like I don't think this person's like channel would have been worse off if they just were like, hey, these are like some TASes that I thought were cool, so I made them. Instead, like it was all about their ego being like a god gamer and so good at video games for being able to do all this shit or whatever. And it's
Hmm.
like, so they were basically making these Symphony of the Night tasks as well as like other games, and I called them out for their Symphony of the Night tasks because it specifically had like I think over 1 million views or something like that on
Really?
YouTube,
Wow.
and I was like, that's really unfortunate that like the most viewed Symphony of the Night speedrun on YouTube is like cheated and it's like a fake run, and it's
Hmm.
just a tool assisted speedrun. And again, I said it in the video, and I'll say it now. If the dude just owned up and said, "Yeah, this is a task," and like that's cool, that's fine. I think it still would have gained the same amount of views because it was an interesting task, and like
Hmm.
you know, I'd even watched it before, and I'm like, "Oh, this is a neat task," and I didn't realize because you have to like read the description for him to be for you to realize that it's not a task, and he's like hyping his own shit up or whatever. Um,
Hmm.
anyways, I make a video kind of like trying to be like, okay, this is a task. Let me show you why a human can't do this because I want to just make sure that there's no misinformation about it. That video ends up blowing up because of talking about cheaters and speedrunning. That's just
Hmm.
something that can happen. I don't like the types of people that ended up watching it because the types of people that are interested in speedrunning cheating content are not the same type of people that you want as your regular viewership, in my opinion.
Mm.
Um, because they are they're not there for the speedrunning, they're there for the drama.
Mm. Yeah.
And that creates a very weird, toxic relationship that can devolve because of them expecting your videos to be about cheating and about drama when like that's not, at least for me, that wasn't my goal. My goal was to try and dispel misinformation.
Yeah.
So anyways, why did I get on this topic? Oh yeah, because
Hmm.
that one of the things that that person did in their task was they used left plus right all over the place.
Mm.
And that was in my video. Like, hey, left plus right, one isn't allowed, and two, like that alone makes it like an invalid speedrun. And two, it's kind of a clear cut thing to like showcase like nobody does left plus right unless they're doing a task that's like specifically showcasing something with left plus right. um and then I got this insane YouTube comment that's like, no, left plus right isn't like what if you just do the analog on one side and then the d-pad on the other, isn't that left plus right? And I'm like, this game came out before the analog controller for the PlayStation ever came out because, as we talked about before, the
Hmm.
game doesn't have analog controls on the original hardware. And since they're emulating it, they're emulating the PlayStation version. So the PlayStation version doesn't have um, analog controls either. You would have to set up the analog separately from the D-pad, but the game is only registering D-pad inputs.
Hmm.
Um, this person's like, well, I can do left plus right on my setup, and it's like, well, what are you playing on? And they showed like this monstrosity of like uh like hard modded PlayStation 2 running things off of like this like bootleg emulator. It was so janky, and they were able to press left plus right at the beginning of like the very beginning of the game, and it caused some sort of like weird like state where I think the character like deloaded itself, and then it loaded like the like the safety, like, okay, we don't have a character, so just load the next scene or something like that, and it like skipped this whole sequence. And they're
Mm.
like, why don't speedrunners do that? And it's like, because left plus right isn't allowed. But this person just like randomly was like, yeah, by the way, if you press left plus right in this one way, you like skip like a minute long sequence at the very beginning of the game.
Hmm.
And it's
Well,
like,
there you
wow,
go.
there's like speedrunning potential there, but it's just not
Hmm.
Like you can't really do it because it's locked behind this like band technique.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because I know this was before my time, but I know someone uploaded like a faked Mario 1 world record.
What? No,
No,
not faked Mario
I
1.
can't believe. Anyway, but they did this weird thing where it was like a weird frame rule that people didn't use for the bullet bill in 8.2. And it
Mm.
was later found out that this frame rule is actually much better than what was originally being used, and that's what people like still use to this day if they're going for like a specific time with that in mind.
Oh,
But
okay.
like,
And it
so
came
yeah,
from a cheated
yeah, it
run.
came from a cheated run.
That's funny.
Yeah, so I love when cheaters actually help somehow.
Yeah. And that's the other thing is we like tried to reach out to this person like we like the community like tried to reach out because they ended up trying to upload one of their tasks like to the leaderboard because the one video they never uploaded anywhere because it was like kind of like a showcase run of like a leaderboard category that doesn't exist.
Mhm.
But they just did like a normal any percent run and that run was obviously cheated and we were like, hey, this run is obviously cheated, but like they obviously knew what they were doing and had like knowledge of the game. Turns out that they were like friends with a big part of like the Brazilian speedrunning community for Symphony of the Night,
Mm.
who are very like there still is like we have a more collective scene now where everybody kind of gets together in one place, but back in the day like the different languages and different like regions were kind of separate. Like there was a Japanese scene of like 3 people, there was a Brazilian scene of like a dozen people or so, and then there was like the English speaking scene that
Mhm.
like kind of like with Romscout ended up being like the best at the game mostly, where the other scenes were mostly like glitch hunting for the most part
Mm.
and doing like speed runs as well, but they were primarily the ones doing a lot of the glitch hunting until Sockfolder like completely like changed everything.
Mhm.
um and so that dude ended up being friends with a lot of the people in the Brazilian scene, so that's how he ended up learning a lot of the tricks. So at first we were like, hey, we don't want to like be mean to you, but like we can't accept this on the leaderboard because it's cheated, but like who are you and how do you have all this knowledge? Like we could
Mhm.
like talk, like try and be like diplomatic about it because it's like this is clearly somebody that knows their stuff. Turns out they only knew any of this stuff because they were working with other people that were already like known in the scene. So we were like, oh, okay, well then fuck this guy.
Mm.
Like, because not only it was one thing that he tried to submit a cheated run. The second part is when he just like doubled, triple, quadrupled down and said, no, you guys are a bunch of like he tried to call us like racist for not allowing him to like upload
Oh,
his run
great.
and all this other fun stuff. It was great. It was fun. Um,
I love moderating leaderboards.
yeah, it's great.
Mhm.
I love it when people ask like why they can't just cheat.
Hmm.
It's like, what? Why is my run not allowed? All I did was cheat. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, you cheat all the time with those glitches, right? Why can't I?
That's what I'm saying, bro. Like
Mhm.
speedrunners doing glitches, they should go to speedrun jail for cheating. The developers didn't intend for you to do bug abuses, so
Mhm.
go to jail.
Go directly to jail and do not collect $200.
No, exactly.
Mhm.
Everything that is not playing the game exactly how I played it on my first playthrough as a child is cheating.
Mhm. Exactly. Man. I'm just thinking of all the YouTube comments. Shit I've seen now. Just laughing
Yeah.
about it inside.
I mean, I used to try and I used to like point it out and like post it on Twitter and stuff like, oh, isn't this silly? Isn't this ridiculous? I kind of get to the point where like it happens so every so often where I just kind of look at it and I chuckle and then I move on.
Mhm.
Because like way back in the day, I used to be very feisty and would argue with people in YouTube comments of my
Hell yeah.
videos because I was like, nah, fuck it, we ball, bro. You're in my video, you're in my territory. I'm gonna tell you why you're wrong. But then you realize that it's like, unless you're a hater for the love of the game, like unless you're willing to like go into the depths of like YouTube comment hell, you don't gain anything for doing this because
No.
those people never change their mind. You have to do it for the love of the game. And after a time, it's like, man, there's just too many of these guys. I can't keep I can't keep spending all day arguing with them. So I just have to learn to move on and be like, huh, that's funny. And like, if it's something that's like obviously like hate speech, I'll delete it. But if they're just like going off about some dumb stuff in my comments, I just let it. I'm like, whatever. It's whatever.
Mhm. I'll let them be wrong.
Yeah,
The
exactly. Let them be wrong on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, never happened before.
Yeah,
So
and those comments never gain any sort of like traction. It's not like everyone's like, yeah, this guy, he's onto something here. Why are you using glitches? That's cheating.
yeah, it is. Yeah, it is cheating.
Literally cheating.
So you moderate the something the light leaderboards.
I do not. I just
Oh, okay.
am part of I moderate the Discord. I help moderate the Discord, but the
Got it.
actual leaderboards themselves, I just never got into that opportunity. I was always like friends with the people obviously who were moderating it. And like I would help with like I wouldn't even say I helped. It's more so that I like if there was something going on, I would just, agree with the moderator's decisions and be like, yeah, no, like fuck this guy for cheating.
Okay,
Like
I
very
see.
very easy common stuff. But I've never actually been part of the moderation team, mostly just due to like not having the time. If I
Yeah,
had the
that's
time,
fair.
I would consider if I was more available, but not so much anymore.
Mm. I was gonna say like there's some fun moderation stories.
Oh, I can imagine. I can
Oh
imagine.
yeah, it's a job that exists, and you also it's probably for the best because sometimes you get a bunch of flack for doing this completely volunteer position for free that takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
Love that. So, uh, I don't really do it anymore, but I'm still a mod. So,
That's a genuine issue actually that a lot of people have to deal with, which is like, you know, if you don't treat like leaderboard moderators well and like for doing the thankless job that they do,
mm-hmm.
it's like you just don't have leaderboards. That or you just don't have moderated leaderboards. And if you want to have everything auto mod itself, then like, you know, anybody could upload anything and get it onto the leaderboard until it's, removed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So it's it's interesting. It's
it
like
sure
one of the
is.
the long-term leaderboard moderators that no longer moderates. Like that was his big issue is he was just like, I feel like I'm doing this thankless job and like not it's you guys are not appreciating it for one reason or another. And then he eventually was like, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore. He's still part of the community, but he just doesn't want to moderate anymore the leaderboard,
Yeah,
which is
that's fair.
fine. It ends up being fine because we've had a couple of new people step up, and like the game's not so active that it really matters.
Mm-hmm.
um, I've always been a big fan of like allowing runs to auto show up on the leaderboard and then just having moderators like clean the leaderboard up like once a week or something like that, or
Hmm.
whenever something gets submitted. But just so that way, like it feels bad when you do a run, you upload it to a leaderboard, and it's like, okay, the leaderboard will show your run eventually when it gets accepted. It's like, I
Yeah,
don't know.
I get it. But also, I
Some
don't. I
games
don't
can't
like.
do that.
Yeah.
Some games they're too active and like people will take advantage of that and it'll just get like spammed with stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
in communities where you don't have a lot of new runs getting uploaded often enough, I think it's a great way for helping growth in a particular category or speedrun scene in general. Because some people they just want the instant gratification of being like, my name has a number next to it that tells me how good I am,
Mm-hmm.
which for good or for bad, I think is really important in speedrunning. I think it's one of the best hobbies for giving you direct and like objective feedback about your skill growth. Like if the number goes down, if the time goes down, it means you're getting better in one way or
Mm-hmm.
another. And it's this like immediate feedback that you don't get with a lot of other even like gaming achievements or gaming hobbies, like fighting games. Like you can get better at a fighting game, but unless that game has like a really accurate ranked system, it's like, how do you know you're getting better? Do you go to tournaments? And then
Mm-hmm.
like your tournament ranks, like those are things that don't really happen for a lot of people. Most people don't get ranked if there are any like tournament rankings.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like your records in tournaments depend on your opponents and your seeding and all this other stuff. So it's very nebulous whether or not you actually are like get a direct feedback of I'm getting better. But speedrunning, it's like your PB is your PB, and if you beat it, it's like that's a clear representation of like, oh, I got better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's
Also,
very very few things in this world that I think give you that immediate feedback.
yeah, that's fair. Also, people spamming popular speedrun leaderboards. No way.
Oh
Can't
yeah,
believe
exactly.
it.
Yeah, that's
Oh
never
my
happened
god.
before.
Never, never. Oh my god. I have so
The,
much PTSD from that.
I don't know if this happened in Mario 1, but there was a really prominent, it was a few years ago, somebody went through and like uploaded basically previous runs from other world record holders, like their old PBs, and
Oh.
tried to claim them as like their own run. They did this for like 20 different games, like Ocarina of Time, Symphony of the Night was one of them. I
Hmm.
don't know if this ever happened in Mario 1. But that is like so stupid in
Hmm.
hindsight, and it's one of those like really funny stories that I wish I had documented or had documentation of it somewhere, because I feel like that would be a very funny, like if you were to do like a video about cheating and speedrunning, I feel like documenting that is pretty funny, because it's
Yeah.
like dude literally stole speedruns
Yeah.
and just
I
tried to
mean,
claim them as their own, as
I
opposed
don't.
to like uploading a cheated run.
I don't know about that person in particular, but oh, I've had plenty of that. And not
Oh
to
yeah.
mention, I probably rejected about 8 Rickrolls, which is always fun, very original.
Hmm.
But now I remember this one person, and Mario 1. It's funny because usually, if you're stealing a run, you can get it to the frame, and if you're like, oh,
Exactly,
that
yeah.
gameplay looks familiar, you can like find the list of those times and then match it to someone. So I
Yeah, I
remember
mean they.
like they stole from, I don't know, maybe or Andrew G, and I'm just like, you're not Andrew G. Then they uploaded another run. It was Darbian this time. You're not Darbian either. Stop trying. We know how this works. And then
Yeah,
someone's even stolen one of my runs before. I rejected a run that was literally my run being
that's
played out
funny.
in front of me, and I'm like, all right.
That's cute. That's very cute. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That is a very silly way to try, like I feel like you could spin that in a way that isn't so negative, where it's like, isn't this silly? But
Mm-hmm.
I've never gone around to like trying to make that into a video, because at the end of the day, I'm ever fearful that it will get into the eyes of the
Mm-hmm.
of the people that are just there for cheating content, and that is something that I just
The
I did
drama
it once.
llamas.
Yeah, because the cheating video, it blew up. It was like one of my first videos to ever like start getting like serious traction. And
Mm-hmm.
I do have people that are in my community that found me through that video and still watch and aren't that kind of person. So I still think there is value in trying to grow that way.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be very, very, very careful, because most of the people are like not nice.
No,
They
no, they're
are
not.
not they don't want to be your friend. They don't want to be fans. They just want blood. They just want the drama.
Yep. Oh,
S-
I mean, I've experienced that in the community as well. I won't go into it, but like, yeah,
Yeah.
I know when some like big creator makes a drama video about someone in your
Um,
community, and then all of a sudden, like, oh, we hate this guy, or we hate what you're doing, or something. It's like, what? No,
dude,
stop.
it yeah,
We're,
it's
let the
very
mods handle this, please. We know what we're doing.
yeah. I mean, it just takes one like random big YouTuber who just does like content reaction or whatever, or just scrolls through Reddit threads and like finds like that stuff to react to, and that's their whole content, right? It just
Hmm.
takes one of them to like find your community and point like a giant spotlight on it, and then it's like, oh god, where are these people coming from? It's just a flood of like 13-year-olds that follow like PewDiePie or some shit,
Hmm.
that just all of a sudden are showing up because they did a video about like your community.
But then also there's like the obvious like super popular cheater, cough cough butterbun, and then it's just funny.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was just like the people that are like that were like, why is this person cheating? It's like, dude, like this is clearly a sketch, right? This is clearly like a joke. The
I
people
don't know
that
if it was, honestly.
weren't they part of like a comedy group? Like that was their YouTube channel, as they were
I don't
a
know.
YouTube.
It's a Spanish speaking channel that's really popular, so I don't know like what their form of content was, but like
Yeah, the whole idea was that the
you'd think
video
it's a
was meant to
sketch,
be
but they don't at all like
acknowledge it. Yeah,
yeah, they don't acknowledge it.
I think that was. I've seen interpretations, because again, my memory is fuzzy about this because it happened so long ago. But I do vaguely remember the part of them, like, because they made an apology about it, was
Hmm.
them like claiming like, oh, this wasn't our intention. We were trying to make like a comedy video, was kind of the
Did he?
takeaway.
I'm trying to
Um,
remember what he said in that apology video. The
yeah,
fact that he had to make an apology video is so
it's
funny.
yeah, the whole situation is regardless
It's
of what the actual like intent or whatever, it's objectively very funny.
oh, it's
Um,
hilarious.
yeah, and
Except for when people were like, "Oh, this footage is from Butterbun. You must have been cheating because what he did was real." and those people are not being ironic. They
Yeah, and even well, that's the other thing is what is it? There's a rule on the internet that like idiocy and like claiming to be like faking it is like indistinguishable on the internet.
Mhm.
So like even if they're like saying it ironically, there's no way to tell. And like
Yeah.
there are people that will joke about being like, oh, I'm holding this position ironically, but like maybe they're claiming that they're holding the position ironically, but they actually do believe it or
There's no
whatever.
way to know. Yeah.
Or some people just fan the flames and be like, yeah, I'm just here for the drama, so I'm just going to support the unpopular opinion. Um, so yeah, like people will defend like cheaters just because they think it's funny.
Wow, so funny.
Yeah,
Lamau.
it's
Lol
it,
Lamau even.
yeah, like 90% of the Lamau dumb stupid comments that I got on my cheater exposed video is like, you're clearly just mad that you're not like as good as this person. Meanwhile, the entirety of the video is debunking every aspect and why it's not possible for a human to perform it. They
Mhm.
could and no amount of effort that you put into the video will combat them just going, Lamau, you're mad. And it's like, okay, well shit. You got me.
Mad
Like,
cuz
because it's
bad, Lamau.
exactly. And it's
Mhm.
like you can't combat that level of stupidity, even if it's like as a joke, right? But
Mhm.
clearly, the person receiving the information can't discern whether it's a joke or not. And obviously, like, what is the end goal of that joke is just to be like a piece of shit. So it's not
Mhm.
that funny in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
Um, so you just gotta, it sucks. It's
It's
just
yep.
in my opinion, I think making content in that regard or highlighting cheating and speedrunning, it's one of the things that like everybody does at least once and then learns their lesson and is like, oh, I don't want to keep doing that. Or they keep doing that and then they end up with an audience of people that are just there for the drama.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean
Not
that's a
not
whole
going to name any names, but there's one in particular that is quite big that is that.
Yeah, wonder who that is. Maybe I was alluding to that content on the things that I recognize, but
Yeah.
yeah. I get
I
it.
mean,
I find it's interesting sometimes.
I
Like
mean, get your
I'll
bag, do what you got to
yeah.
do.
I'll watch it because I find it interesting. Like, how did they get away with this? I feel
Mhm.
like that part of it is interesting, and it can help inform. Like, oh, this is how to avoid that in the future. This is how they
Yeah,
were
I
caught. Remember this.
And I
But
think you can argue that that is like a way you can do it in a way that is like somewhat ethical or responsible, where
mhm,
it's like, oh, this is about like I would argue that that was my goal with my cheater exposed video, but would I make another one now?
no,
Even if it's for the sake of like trying to be more informative, I feel like it's better to stay away from that topic in general. For me
yeah.
personally.
Or if you could probably spend it away without giving any attention to a certain person, and like just
Yeah, but then at that point, there's like no reason to even bring up the
and
fact that they
yeah, and there
cheated. Yeah.
you almost need that like story element of the person getting away with it and how they were
There's a
caught for
reason
it to
why.
be
Yeah,
compelling.
there's a reason why it's so popular is because it is a very clear-cut narrative of this person bad because cheat because blah blah blah, and people get invested like immediately because of that because they're like, ooh, person on the internet that I get to not like, my favorite thing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm guilty of it. I'll watch that content because I do
I've
find it
yeah
interesting, but I'm not the kind of person that's going to, I'll watch it and then that's it.
yeah you
Like I'm
watch
not
it and
gonna
that's it. You don't try and dox the person or
yeah, I'm
like
not I don't care. Like okay, they
exactly yeah
cheated, fuck them, I guess. Moving
yeah.
on.
That's the thing is
I'm not gonna give them my attention because they don't deserve it. They're a piece of shit cheater.
Yeah, and that's the thing is most people are that, and most people I think have that measured response. It's just the people on the extremes
Hmm.
that will take it too far.
And on the internet, there's so many of those people.
Yeah, well, yeah, especially if because you're amassing such a large number of views,
Hmm.
assuming that the video does well, like a certain number of those people are just going to be unhinged, and
Hmm.
like if you give them a direction to point at and say that like you can be unhinged in this direction and it's justified, even if you don't claim that in your video, it's like those are just unfortunately like the things that come with content creation, where like you unfortunately are kind of like overly responsible for things that aren't even necessarily like part of your like I would argue making a cheater exposed video shouldn't the urgency shouldn't necessarily fall on the creator to do like their due diligence and all well they should do their due diligence to make sure that they're correct
Hmm.
um But like if somebody does something from like watches the video and then like starts harassing the person, it's like in my mind, I feel like the creator who made the video shouldn't be responsible, but that's not how it works. Like that
No.
we live in the world where those types of videos will lead to that type of outcome, and this is like a known thing that happens. So because
Mhm.
of that, you can't really like claim ignorance or claim that like, oh, it's not my fault that this person did this thing specifically because they watched my video. It's like unfortunately we don't live in that world where people are able to separate it in that way. And like if it's a direct result of you, you know, pointing a spotlight at somebody and giving somebody who's unhinged a target, it's like, you know.
Yeah, and you always see like they'll say in the video like do not harass. This is purely for information, and they don't
And it's
listen.
like
They never
they,
do.
nobody ever does, and like yeah, people have tried, I feel like, to make ways of like getting around it where it's like, oh, I can have my cake and eat it too, but I feel like it's really really genuinely like hard to do
Mhm.
that without it leading to a lot of negativity.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. Like it's definitely engaging. It's definitely informative. It's definitely not great either.
Yeah.
So, it's just people on the internet are going to be weird sometimes and it sucks.
Yep.
That's just
There's only so much you can do about it.
yep. Sometimes you can't really do anything about it most of the time.
Yeah. I think it comes down to like if your content leads to a bunch of people being crazy, it's like you kind of have to view that as like a reflection of like, okay, what is it that I'm doing that's like, you know, maybe
Yeah.
not causing it, but like people are drawn to it. These types of people are drawn to the thing I'm doing. Like maybe that's a sign of what I'm
Yeah.
doing should be like reviewed a little bit, you know. And I think a lot of people will do that, but then we'll just kind of be like, nah, it's fine. Like it's not my fault that you know this
People are weird.
person's yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
And to a certain extent, it's like I said, I can understand that viewpoint. It's just that we
Mhm.
live in a world where like that's not really how it works. Like
Like there's
I don't know.
enough data to back up that this topic will target this audience.
Yeah.
And so you can't really be like, "Oh, yeah, it's not my fault. I just make
Yeah.
the video. If people are gonna be cringe, they're gonna be cringe." But
Yeah, exactly.
like it tailors
It
to
has
that audience.
consequences, yeah.
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 I don't know. It's
Like
a weird gray area, I guess.
and I understand why a lot of people like that's why my just general rule of thumb is like just
Yeah,
don't
just
even like
don't.
engage with it because it's like I've had ideas for like ways of doing it in a way that might be like more ethical or might be more like entertaining and not lead to like negativity. But it's like at the end of the day, you are relying on the negative emotions to like tell a story in the first place, and that's like in general, it's kind of like a shortcut for getting engagement
Mhm.
is to tell a negative story
Yeah.
or to bring something negative up, and that's like you know like it doesn't feel good. It's kind of lazy and like you gain engagement, but like what kind of engagement are you getting? Is it like quality engagement that you can like be happy about
Mhm.
and like leads to sustainability? Oftentimes not. And I think we also live in a world where like with the hyper acceleration of all things internet content, people are popping up out of nowhere by abusing the fact that negative content gets more views, so more negative stuff gets pushed into algorithms, and then like
Mhm.
there's this constant like feedback loop. But then these types of influencers are who are being raised or like raised up, sorry, on just making negative content. They like the turnover rate's so fast because they blow up in the mainstream. They keep doing negative shit. They get pushed to the edge to do more and more and more negative shit, and then eventually they go too far, and then everyone's like, "Whoa, that's crazy. We don't like this guy anymore." And then they move on to the next one, and it's just a never ending
Mhm.
cycle.
It's like a snowball off a cliff
Yeah,
every
pretty
time.
much. And I see that trend and it's like okay I could lean I wouldn't but like hypothetically if all I cared about was growth and
Mhm.
numbers and metrics it's like okay lean into negativity to force engagement through this like abusing the fact that humans are like have negativity bias or whatever and that
Mhm.
the algorithms are also pushing that bias. You could do that but it's like you people don't realize like what's the end result of that. It's like yeah you get you know money, you get views, you get you know a bunch of followers, but it's like the type of people that you're getting, like the quality of those interactions, are they good? Probably not. Are you going to be happier just because you have more money and metrics and all this other stuff? Like
No.
maybe, but like how like is that does that outweigh like the negative aspects of having that like negative fan base and like are they really like your fans or are they just people that are interested in like the negativity in and of itself? And if they no longer get that like fixation from what it is that you're doing, they're going to like point their negativity towards you as an individual. It's vicious. It really is.
Yeah. I mean, it all depends on the kind of person the creator is as well. Like, if they recognize they're pulling in this, they'll stop. But if not, it's like, oh, okay, you're into that. You care about it for this reason, then, or I don't know. It all again, it's a weird topic. So,
Yep.
definitely. Anyway, what's something non-negative? Anything else?
I don't know, man. Speedrunning's cool. I like
speedrunning's
speedrun.
cool. Yeah, I like speedrun.
I
Speedrun
like
fun.
speedruns.
Yeah, speedrun.
SGDQ was a lot of fun. You had a
Oh
lot of
my
fun going there.
god, yes. It wasn't quite like back to normal, but it was like, because I went to 2022 and it was so weird. Like,
Yeah, I missed out
no
on
one was the
2022.
yeah, you didn't miss out on much. No one was there. Like, it was, the practice room was so spaced out, the stream room was so spaced out. Like, I get it. I'm not mad at them for doing this. It makes perfect sense. But it was just so boring. There was no
Yeah.
arcade. They just had like 5 machines spaced like 20 feet apart from each other in this room. It was so boring. But this, oh,
The
hold
people
on.
that went, they
Oh,
pretty much just all spent. Oh,
no, it was just a buffer. We're good.
okay. Yeah, I remember hearing from the people that did went that I talked to. It's like people were just hanging out in their hotel rooms and like not really spending
Yeah.
time at the actual event itself. Which I mean, that always happens to a certain extent,
Hmm.
but like, I don't know. That felt like even more so.
Yeah, part of it was this GDQ was the first time I ever like went to hotel rooms, like other
Mm,
people's hotel rooms, and hung out. Like,
yeah.
I've never known enough people, or was like felt social anxiety wise comfortable doing that until this time.
Hmm.
And oh
Yeah.
my god, that's like the best part. I finally get it now. Because I
Yeah.
would just sit in the
That's
practice room alone sometimes and just do whatever. But
yeah. Yeah.
finally, yeah, I
I think
loved this
having
GDQ.
that social interaction is like super duper important. I was super happy to go because like the last GDQ I went to in person was AGDQ 2020, so like
Hmm.
3 years almost.
Oh yeah.
Um, without like seeing a lot of people that whose friendship I made through going to these GDQ events. Like it was my first GDQ event after being like full time in content creation, so it was very different, a different experience in general to like have other content creators who are like, hey, you're doing good stuff or whatever, or
Hmm.
like I'll know that like. There was a whole like doing the panel, for example, is like
Hmm.
those are a group of people who I think are all doing like amazing stuff, and the fact that they're like, hey, you can do this too, like you're doing stuff that's cool too, and I'm just like, me,
Yeah. I
really?
mean, they told me like, "Hey, you have some good ideas for content creation." I was like, "Really? All right."
Yeah, and I will say that those folks are very welcoming, very open and honest. Like nobody's trying to gatekeep any secrets or anything like that. Like
Hmm.
those are a group of people that like if I am struggling with something, like hey, I don't know how to do this, or like the a few videos ago, I was like, hey, I saw I like added somebody. I'm like, hey, I saw you did like this really cool glitch effect on the text on your thumbnail. Like, how did you do that? And they sent me like the video tutorial that they watched, and I was like,
Hmm.
oh wow, thank you. You
Hmm.
know, like that's something that as a resource would have been harder for me to find on my own. So
Hmm.
like having that I guess like support system slash like group of people that are like willing to like want everybody to succeed, because that is one of the reasons why I'm very happy about like doing more collaborative content with the main channel videos is like the more that everybody succeeds, the better it is for everybody in general. I feel like people get really caught up in this like zero sum game of like live streaming and like YouTube views, but it's like nah, if one person's doing well and they're friends with another person, that person does well, and it's like people viewers tend to like when their like favorite streamers have friends and like they also stream and all this other parasocial
Hmm.
stuff and whatever. um but also it's just like it means that the overall ecosystem is healthier. Like I was expanding this out even more so with GDQ, where there's obviously all of the Twitter drama of people being like Lamau GDQ done fell off,
Plus
not get
ratio.
yeah, plus out plus ratio, not
Hmm.
getting 100,000 live concurrent viewers like you did 6 years ago, Lamau, or whatever, or oh, didn't
Hmm.
raise 3 million this time. It was only 2.2 million, uh, which is like I understand why people like a lot of people do that. They'll like just stat compare because they can, because human beings are silly like that.
Higher number
Um,
better. Yeah.
Yeah, bigger number, better person, all
Mhm.
that fun stuff. But there is underlying all of that. There is a underlying like trend that is true that like if you look at the numbers, GDQ got kind of hard shafted by COVID,
Mhm.
but they were also kind of like struggling right before then as well. Like right before COVID, AGDQ 2020 was kind of like a bounce back year, and then it immediately led into COVID.
Mhm.
So and I think a big part of it is because any first of all, anybody who says that they know the reason why GDQ fell off plus L plus ratio is just
Mm.
wrong.
Yeah,
It's a
correct.
very complicated and multifaceted issue with like various different things that are all like, and saying that you understand all of it is just wrong.
Mhm.
But the way my first instinct is like, okay, like people are saying this and they're like pointing at different reasons or whatever, but like, what are tangible ways that people can like what is something that GDQ could do to fix that, right? Like what's something that, and I don't think anybody came up with any answer other than like just get more famous streamers on their forehead,
Mhm.
which I don't even think would work. I don't think that
No.
that's like I don't think there's anything wrong with attempting to get more like larger streamers involved with GDQ. Like even somebody like Moist Critical, having
Hmm.
him do like a remote run, I think would be cool. But I don't think that's gonna break the bank and make, oh, now we're raising $10 million. Like no,
Yeah, no.
I think it would be a cool thing to get other like wider communities involved.
Mhm.
Because I do think GDQ is kind of like hammered down into their niche, like niche I say, but they're still getting 60,000 views, right?
Mhm.
But a somewhat more niche audience, and they're like, okay, we're going to cater to these people that we are comfortable with, that we like. This is the audience that we like, and we're going to continue to make them more comfortable with our content and kind of cater towards them, which I think is a good thing. I
Mhm.
genuine like it adds stability, it adds like less volatility in all sorts of different ways, but it also leads to like less peak viewership. And I
Yeah.
think you could also do that while growing that pool of people that you are making content for. Like there are other people that will fit into that like group of people. They just don't know it yet. And that's
Mhm.
because I think GDQ has like a weird marketing issue where like, how do you market GDQ when it's been a thing biannually for like well over a decade? Like, how do you get new people interested in it? And I think one is they've been doing it for so long that like mainstream media doesn't really cover it anymore, because the
Mhm.
idea of nerds in basement raise millions of dollars for charity isn't like a headline that is being made anymore.
No.
Like that happened a couple of times, and that mainstream notoriety is genuinely like important to getting like more people interested.
Mhm.
um I think GDQ's social media, until very recently, I think this year their like Twitter accounts and their social accounts are doing a lot more now, and I think
Mhm.
that's a way better like response than like I heard anybody else like in those stupid Twitter threads like, oh,
Mhm.
GDQ just needs to get XQC running Minecraft for $100 million.
Oh, we're out again. Talk about XQC broke my stream. Lamau. Or lol Lamau even. Man. It's fun. It's good and fun. You having fun, YouTube? I hope. Because I'm not. uh, can someone, like, give me some better internet, please? I'd really appreciate it. Thanks. Oh, is it not coming back either? Uh-oh. Panic. Yep. We're back.
We're back. All right, cool.
Apparently talking about XQC breaks my stream, so...
Yeah, I'll never bring him up again. I
Okay, good.
apologize.
It's okay.
Dude is cursed. Uh, to finish the last part of my thought was GDQ's social media team is like legitimately the way that they will continue to like actually grow at this
Mm-hmm.
point, right? Because like how do you grow a business that's been going for that long? Is like they them doing stuff on social media that is like interesting and unique and like helps expand their audience. One aspect that I do wish they invested in more was their YouTube channel, because they have a YouTube channel of nearly 1 million subscribers that I feel
Mm-hmm.
like is under supported. I feel like granted, I imagine that might not be like their highest priority because they're working on like all this live content, and then like just uploading it to YouTube is oftentimes good enough.
Mhm.
But I do feel like if there was like, for example, is there room for GDQ to like hire people to produce scripted content for them, or
Mhm.
to for them to have their own like set of um, like editors to help edit down some of the live content to create different formats for their content. Like, could you edit down some of the actual GDQ events into you know something that's more palatable to like a more casual YouTube audience, instead of somebody that's willing to watch a whole, 5-hour speed run? Could you like condense it into like the highlights and all this other stuff? Not to say that they haven't tried highlights before, they have. These are all things
Mhm.
that they've tried before. Outside of the scripted content thing, I don't think that's anything GDQ's ever like looked into. Like, I can come up with like a million ideas. Like, they could do a scripted video on like the history of save or kill the animals in Super
Mhm.
Metroid. Like, how did that become a thing? Like the different things that are unique to the history of GDQ as a organization. Like, these are really important historical things for the organization that could be explained in like scripted content, and it has like built-in storylines because they've been around for so long.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I don't really watch what GDQ posts on the YouTube. I'm obviously subscribed to it, but it's just the whole copy paste. Like, here's the VOD of the run from the event with the same
Yep.
thumbnail and the same title. And I mean, I do that too, but I'm also
Yeah, like I
not
said,
trying to tailor to an
oftentimes.
audience. I'm not like that's like
Yeah,
my channel to just upload shit.
yeah, oftentimes that is good enough. That
Hmm.
because those VODs are still getting like tens of
Yeah,
thousands of
it's
views.
good enough, all right.
But
But
the thing is, for them as a channel with like almost 1 million subscribers, is like, I feel like they could activate some of those. Like, obviously they've
already, gosh. Uh, it sucks, man. All right, I'm gonna wait this one out for a little bit. Ah, man. All right, it's not coming back that way. No. Man, it is really just not cooperative right now.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate.
Yep. Well, again, nothing you can do about RNG, so we move on.
Yeah, skill issue, as they say.
Skill issue, L plus ratio.
Yeah. But yeah, basically to tie all that in together is like, I think people who are interested in speedrunning as like a general hobby slash like community should be interested in the general health of games done quick. And I think just like, you know, roasting them because they had like a few rough years, a lot of it due to like, you know, things that are
COVID.
mostly outside of their, yeah, things that are very outside of their control.
Hmm.
um and also like being exacerbated by the fact that maybe there are things that they could have, oh, in hindsight they should have done this better to change with the times. But it's like, yeah, you can say that all you want, but I do
Hmm.
think that people should be invested and like supportive of the Games Done Quick channel, if they're interested in speedrunning as a whole, because they are, for better or for worse, kind of the largest ambassador for speedrunning on the internet outside of like individual creators,
Hmm.
right? And I do think individual creators do have a lot of influence, like someone like a Summoning Salt, or even to bring up Moist Critical again, like dude is doing his own like speedrun competitions and like getting a lot of hype around them and like putting money behind them, and that is its own separate cool thing that can come from speedrunning. It doesn't always have to be like a charity marathon or whatever,
Hmm.
but it is important to note that that is part of the ecosystem.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really happy seeing all the things pop up, like whatever random big YouTuber speedrun related thing is. I mean, it's
Hmm.
just gonna pull in more and more people to the hobby. and that's
Yeah,
nice
and
because it's
it
fun.
makes it more sustainable, more
Hmm.
healthy for people that are trying to do it as a job, and it also just means more people, more unique individuals that are that get to be a part of the experience.
Yep,
Also, the sun just came out and is directly on me. I'm gonna turn off this light real quick.
that's fair.
Try
It's
and
quickly,
glow a little bit
yeah,
less.
it's quickly leaving me, so I'm getting darker and darker as the day progresses. But
Yeah,
um, God, what was I gonna say about?
just like health of speedrunning stuff, GDQ, new stuff popping up.
Yeah, I had some point, but I think my internet is like making
Mhm.
me forget stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if there are any more topics that you wanted to hit home.
Yeah, I mean, love GDQ. Talked about all that. I mean, you're known for Symphony of the Night, but what else do you run?
I've done runs of other games in the past, but nothing has ever caught my full attention like
Hmm.
Symphony of the Night. I've also been like a tangential fan of almost all of like the big games,
Oh my gosh.
more niche that are
Oh,
in my oh, just buffering.
just a buffer. Thank God.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like I'm tangentially aware of a lot of games. Like my first GDQ, I went as a Symphony of the Night speedrunner, but I
Hmm.
made friends with some of the Mega Man folks, some of the Pokemon guys, just sitting down into like different groups because I'm like, oh wait, I really like that game. So like, do you want
Let's
to
talk about it.
talk about the speed run that you
Yep.
do? And most everybody at a GDQ is like, heck yeah, I can talk about this game for hours because it's
Hmm.
most people don't speedrun a game unless they're really into it.
Yep.
Or if
Correct.
they're like brand new, they'll still have something to talk about, like, oh, I'm
Hmm.
still learning this, and you can talk about the learning experience or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, and because of just that, like I said, like one of my first speedruns was even like Yoshi's Island and stuff like that. There's like some of these games that I think um, I just tangentially became like fans of through either watching them on YouTube or like watching a GDQ run. Like, I think everybody for who is like old school speedrunning was like fans of Yoshi's Island because of Trihax was
Hmm.
one of the biggest personalities in speedrunning for a very very long time. And the game is genuinely very very cool. It just sucks that the only speedrun categories are like either an hour long or 2.5 hours long.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like if that game had like a 30-minute long category, it would probably be like one of the most popular speedrun games in my opinion. But
Mm.
at least like a good like 30-minute to 40-minute long category. Um, but yeah, I've been tangentially like one of my first games was Kirby. One of my first games also was like I dipped my toes into Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland, Mega Man X, Yoshi's Island, a little bit of Pokemon speedrunning, and then Symphony of the Night was really the game where I was like, oh wait, like this,
Mhm.
I really want to get good at this. Like this game feels so much fun to do like runs of. Like it's so rewarding. Um, and there wasn't really much of like a large community either, so there wasn't really much of a community aspect for me. It was mostly just like personal growth, like personal like enjoyment of like taking a game and beating it all the way through in a single sitting. Like the novelty of that was so strong
Mhm.
for that game in particular. And I've dabbled into other Castlevania games. Like I've learned speedruns for Aria of Sorrow, Castlevania Aria of Sorrow, Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow, Castlevania Portrait of Ruin. Um, Circle of the Moon is another one. Like a couple of Castlevania games, just because like I'm a fan of all those Castlevania games. I grew up playing a decent chunk of those as well.
Mhm.
Um, but none of them have like really sunk their teeth into me like Symphony of the Night has. I mean, I've been speedrunning it for coming up on 10 years now, and I'm like still doing speedruns all
Mhm.
the time for it, whether it's randomizer or like the normal game. Like recently, nobody's done runs of the pacifist route, and I've never done pacifist runs in the past. So I was like, oh, what's this pacifist run like? And I just learned it, and I'm like, oh, cool. Like this is really fun. I want to get world record in this now.
Yep.
So like there's always new stuff to be doing. There's also multiple characters in Symphony of the Night, which is like another thing. Like last year or a little bit part of this year, I took a brief period from the main character Alucard, and there's a Sega Saturn release of the game that has a Sega Saturn only character where you play as Maria, who is like this really powerful like bonus character, and the speed run for any percent is like 7 minutes for her, and then the all bosses category is like 35 40 minutes for her, and I was like, oh, these are fun, and I wanted to I just picked them up just for funsies, and then I ended up getting record in both of those just from enjoying my time with it and being like, oh yeah, I could get record in this if I, put some more effort in. And lo and behold, you put a little more effort in, and it happens.
Yeah.
So it's one of those games that has just like so much replay value, not just for the speedrun, but just in general. So it's been so hard for me to feel the need to play new games, especially because I do struggle since I got so good at Symphony of the Night, like world record level. Probably the best in the world. I think that's pretty comfortable to say without sounding too full of myself. But it's hard to go from that level to like pure beginner again, and to like show it on stream. That's the one part that I really struggle with. Where if I wanted to learn a new speedrun, I would want to basically learn the entirety of the speedrun off stream and just start by doing runs, even if the runs are kind of bad. But I think going through that learning process of like trial and error, because I think most people don't realize that like what it takes to get good at a speedrun is like by just being bad for a long time, and then eventually you learn all of the ways to be bad, and then you iron those out, and then you eventually be good at the end of it, kind of. Like I would still argue that I'm still bad, but like but that's speedrunner, classic speedrunner mentality.
Oh yeah, I have it very well as well, so I understand. Oh, world record, shit run, garbage, L.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how it goes. All right, do you have any future speedrun plans then?
That is, for me, I talked about it a little bit before, but my plans in speedrunning are a little more the idea of like grinding out runs for the sake of getting world record. Oftentimes like it comes and goes. So I've found a lot more enjoyment in like the video creation process and like video content creation. And for me, some of the most fulfilling stuff, at least right in this moment, is like finding people that I'm friends with that are also, doing speedrunning, but also trying to do content creation at the same time, and being like, hey, you, me, let's make a video about your game. And that's what my most recent video is. It's a speedrun of Castlevania Aria of Sorrow, not my main game, but it's a game I know some stuff about, but I still sat down with former world record holder, like top 2 player, and had him like explain the run to me, and I got so much more out of it, and it's so much more like, to me it feels much closer to that feeling of going to GDQ, sitting down in the practice room and having somebody explain their game to me, and like being able to take that feeling and experience and try and condense it into a video, for me right now is the most enjoyable part of speedrunning in and of itself. And it's not even like actually playing games necessarily. I still have fun playing games, and every time I tell myself I want to learn a speedrun and like do it, I get like partially through learning the run, and then I get kind of like I could be working on something else, or I kind of want to focus on something else. The closest I did get to like actually saying, okay, I'm going to learn a new speedrun was Tears of the Kingdom, the Tears of the Kingdom speedrun, because I don't know if you've seen any of it. It is wild.
I haven't seen anything about it.
The game has gotten I was kind of keeping my eye on it. I was playing the game casually when it first came out, and I made a video about Breath of the Wild speedrunning, and part of the video goes over like my expectations for what speedrunning is going to look like for Tears of the Kingdom, seeing as how they were, very similar games based on the same game engine and similar ideas. And so part of me was like, okay, I kind of want to be right about my predictions about the game. Because I had a few, like seeing the pre-release trailers, I'm like, that's going to be broken. And it's going to be broken because of this. Just having that like speedrun intuition, when you've seen enough speedruns, you realize that like, okay, this kind of system, like there's no way they made this like not glitchy as hell, right?
Yeah.
And then lo and behold, the game comes out, and like the first day, everyone's like, oh my God, this game is programmed so well. There's like no outstanding glitches or anything like that. And then, oh, it's broken. The speedrunners in general got their hands on it. Oh, there's all sorts of out of bounds duplication. Okay, it's broken.
Every game is usually.
Yeah, it just takes time for people to find out how to break it, and I was really like, oh man, I think it'd be fun to like, because I learned a little bit of Breath of the Wild speedrunning for the video that I made, which was fun. I learned just enough to be like comfortable playing through a decent chunk of the game, and like but not enough where I'm like gonna sit down and do like resets of it.
Mhm.
Which was like kind of a new experience. It was like a casual like speed running for fun experience, which is something that I don't get to do super duper often. So in general, most of my speed running now I think is just going to be me speed running as a way to get footage for videos,
Well,
which is, you know,
it works.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's usually going to be me getting footage for like B-roll footage for a video that I might be working on in conjunction with somebody else. So
Mm. Okay.
those are my plans going forward. I'll still make videos by myself of like probably any video that is about Symphony of the Night. I'll probably make by myself unless it's a historical run, and like then maybe I'll get Rom Scout involved if I'm doing like one of his runs.
Yeah.
But in general, I've really enjoyed the idea of like working with other people to make the experience better. Hopefully.
Actually, I'm kind of curious what you're like. How much time per day do you put into like streaming and speedrunning, and then content creation stuff? And...
Part of me tells myself like, hey, I should keep track of the hours I'm working just
Mhm.
for data, and I'm like, no, I
I
shouldn't
mean,
do
that's
that
fair.
because I would be so upset at seeing the because I work a lot.
Hmm.
Streaming, I try and stream recently with GDQ and a couple of other like real life things. Streaming has been a little bit harder. But before all of that, I was streaming like 5 days a week, usually like 4 to 6 hours a day.
Mm.
And then I would
No, it was going so
work.
well. Oh,
Uh,
we're back. Stay.
nice.
Wait. Okay, we're good.
I would try and work on a video like for at least like an hour or two a day as well. So pretty easily, I was doing like 8 hours, probably every single day. And that's not to mention like all of the small things that pop up with content creation stuff like making since I upload every day, it's like, do I have a video for today? Do I have a thumbnail? Do I have a title that I'm willing to put on this?
Hmm.
Um, uh, I've automated most of like the busy work out of like uploading every day. So now it's to the point where all I need to do is like the monetization and ad stuff takes care of itself. The YouTube description and all that stuff takes care of itself. All I need basically is a title and a thumbnail. So I have to do one of those pretty much every day, and that takes me like 30 minutes.
Mm.
Um, and then I'll some days if I'm like in crunch mode for like this most recent video, I probably like flipped my schedule where I would stream maybe 1 or 2 hours if I was going to stream that day, and then I worked the rest of the day on the video. The last 2 days that I worked on this most recent video, I probably put in 12 hours each day to like get it all finalized and finished.
Mm.
But that's also because I've gotten to the point where like I'm not good enough to do it faster, but I'm just good enough to do more work per video. Like I'm like, oh, there's this idea that I want to put in the video, and I know I could do it, but I don't know exactly how to do it. So I have to go through the process of learning how to do it while making the video, which ends up being, experience that I could use in future videos. But then that's how scope creep starts to like creep in, where it's like, okay, I learned how to do this in the last video, so I can implement it in this video. But then there's new stuff I want to put in the new video as well. So then things just kind of pile in on top of each other. And then that's how you end up with like, 3, 4, 5 weeks between like videos, even though you're working on them pretty much every day.
Yeah. I guess just like from an insider looking in that's kind of interested, it just seems like you won't have time to do stuff. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't do like, if I wanted to do like a hardcore like world record grind for like a very good time, that just kind of isn't like a thing anymore. I've done it recently whilst also uploading every day, but I haven't done it while trying to upload every day and maintain a second channel that does like higher quality scripted content. But also that's just because my priorities have changed a little bit. I think once you've been speedrunning for 10 years and you've held world records since I closed the tab, but like I think I've had uncontested any percent world record for like 7 years, six years now, something like that. Oh, that's not true. No, there was a period of time like a couple years ago that there was somebody that broke the record for like a day, and then I got it back the next day.
okay. Well.
Something like that. It's one of those things where like I've been at the top for so long, and like if if there was ever a point where somebody else could get the record, it's because I just hadn't been putting the time in, and then I could like beat my, like it would be like, oh shit, PB, blah blah blah, but it's world record, so I'll leave it alone. And then somebody else comes along and tries to like grind it down a little bit, and then I'm like, okay, like sure, we can work on this category. We're working on this category now, sure. And then I'll hop in and like get like a minute time save somewhere, and it's like, okay, well, I'm done now. The competition aspect of speedrunning is one of those things that for me doesn't like, it's not like there anymore. So grinding out for the sake of being number one doesn't like it. I just don't feel anything about it anymore. I still like to be number one, and I think if somebody showed up and tried to get one of my world records, I probably wouldn't stop them until they've actually beaten the record, and then maybe I might come back and do runs, maybe if I have the feeling to do so. But I don't know if I have it in me anymore. I might just be at that point just more interested in content creation.
Yeah, I guess it's just whatever you want to do. So
exactly. I think it's just one of those things where over the course of 10 years you realize that like, oh, this it's still fun, and I still love speedrunning, and I'll still will do speedrunning in one way or another. It's just a matter of like, do I want to be the guy that's like hardcore trying to grind for all these different records, or trying to beat all these PBs because I think that my PBs are bad, or do I say that, you know what, I'm happy with what I've done, and like all of that is always going to be there, but like I have this new thing that I'm working on.
All right. It's good insight.
Yeah.
I think that's all I got really. So
yeah,
I guess before my internet craps out again, we can wrap it up.
I think that's a good ending point. Yeah, that feels good.
Cool. So go ahead and shout out however you'd like.
Hey, thank you, whoever is here watching this, whether it's on Twitch or on YouTube. Hey, if you're watching on YouTube, you should subscribe right now to, what's your YouTube channel?
Don't worry about it. Just promote yourself.
If you want to learn more about my speedruns or whatever, @4gonBlitz on pretty much all socials, Dr4gonBlitz. I also upload daily on @4gonBlitz Daily. Yeah.
Wow, it's almost like all of those are right there on the stream / video right there.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm in it for the fun of it, and I'm just happy that there are people that care about what I'm doing enough to like watch. That in and of itself is amazing to me, and I never take that for granted.
Very good. Well, I'll obviously have all the links in the description as well, but they're on the footage too, because it fits nicely, I guess. All right. I guess time to end things. Thanks for watching, everyone, no matter where you're watching from. If you're watching this on Twitch here, YouTube video will be posted later. Watching on YouTube, watch the next Twitch one next Sunday. All that fun stuff. Before I forget, because Twitch actually added a good feature. I can't believe this.
Oh, the shout out feature? Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, Twitch adding a useful feature that I actually use frequently. I can't believe it. Yeah. Well done. Yeah. Shoutouts to shoutouts. As they say. Literally shoutouts to shoutouts.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yep. All right. I guess that's all I got to say. Have a good one, everyone. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.